Okay, thank you. So since we have a quorum, we'll start the Architectural Board of Review meeting for October 24th. And can we have a mic check, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll have Chair Gradine.
Here.
Board Member Moore.
Here.
Board Member Tripp. Here. Board Member Witosh.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first order of business is to invite anyone from the public who would like to comment on a project not, or make a statement to the board regarding something not on today's agenda. Seeing no one, we'll go on to the approval of the minutes.
Could you read the letter I just pointed out to you? Thank you.
Oh. All right. So we have a virtual comment here sent to the Architectural Board of Review regarding a project not on today's agenda. And it says, to the ABR, would you please share your thoughts on the use of canvas screening to cover open iron railing on balconies and patios for homes in the downtown Santa Barbara area and Lower Riviera? I live in a large condo development at 601 East Mitchell-Terena, bounded by Mitchell-Terena, California, Salas Puentes, and Arriaga streets. There are 115 units here in a mix of Spanish and craftsman-style homes that are in large 3-story and 2-story buildings. See photo. The homeowners board, we got a kind of a partial photo there. The homeowners board has made a decision without consulting the city to allow the covering of all Spanish ironwork balconies with canvas screening, see photo example, to allow for more privacy for units. Next will be screening for the open wood railings as well. I feel this is inappropriate for the neighborhood and for the city of Santa Barbara, especially on large developments. The HOA board believes the screening will have very little visual impact. Has this screening to cover open iron railings and wood porch and balcony railings been approved by the ABR for other large condo developments or other residential projects? Would this require ABR approval or city review at a minimum? Thank you for your thoughts. G. Tyler Clark. So any board members like to comment on this?
Well, it's not a discussion item. It's just like if somebody came in and made a comment.
Gotcha.
So it's something that perhaps we can put on the agenda as a discussion item. Or I'm thinking if it requires a building permit, then it requires ABR approval. If it doesn't require a building permit, I'm not quite sure if it's under the ABR purview.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Well, painting doesn't necessarily require a permit, and that would be under our purview.
Painting doesn't?
Like you paint a building different color?
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
No permit is required, no design review. Is that right?
If no
Not
building permit's
necessarily.
required, then, right. If it needs a building permit, then it requires design review. I'm going to ask Mr. Lamone about this, because for some reason I think it needs design review. But
I don't think that flies in the EPV.
no, EPV is that's something different. So I'll look into it. But
Okay.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would move that we make this a discussion item, that we give us a little time to find out more about the permitting, the relationship of such things to the HOAs and the permitting process, as opposed to individual, owners and so forth.
We don't need a motion. I'll just go ahead and we'll get it on the agenda as a discussion item. Thanks.
I think the first order of business would be to find out whether we have purview. So if we don't have purview, comments are useless. So approval of the minutes, please, for Monday, October 10th. And we'll first take comments on those minutes, starting with item 1 or anything before item 1. I think under the motion item 3 under the motion that the word cowl is C-O-W-L.
I looked it up.
Actually,
You did?
C-O-W-L-E.
I looked it up. I looked under architectural terms, and I spelled it this way, so I can change it.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I had to look it up because I had never heard that term before.
Okay.
So I'll look it up again, but it might be several spellings are acceptable, so.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments on any of the other items of the agenda?
No.
Ellen? Okay, great. Well done,
Yeah.
whoever worked on this, Susan.
Crystal.
And Crystal. All right, so we're on to the consent calendar for October 17th.
We need to make a motion to approve that.
Oh, yes, sorry. So we need a first and a second for the approval of the minutes for
First.
October 10th. Scott
I'll second.
and Amy.
Give it to the lady.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. October 17th, consent, please.
Okay, item A, 136 North Quarantina Street was approval of review after final with change noted. Item B, 2118 Oak Park Lane, continued indefinitely with comments. Item C, 400 block of North Lacumba Road, final approval with a condition. And item D, 1507 San Pasqual Street, continued indefinitely with comments. And those were reviewed by Gradine and Miller.
Need a first and a second, please.
First.
Second.
Scott and Howard, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And for the 24th, please.
For the 24th, item A, 421 South Mopa Street was continued 1 week to consent with comments. Item B, 228 Cottage Grove Avenue was granted project design approval and final approval as noted, and those were reviewed by Chair Gradine.
Need a first and second, please.
Second.
Hopkins and Witosh, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Announcements, please.
The only announcement I have is board members Kung and Miller will be absent from today's meeting, and Chair Gradine will step down from item 4 at 1116 San Pasqual Street. So when he steps down, we will just have quorum. So, thank you.
Okay. Any subcommittee reports?
We did have a subcommittee meeting on the EUD ordinance. It was woefully attended from just myself. Other board members are going to have to step it up. And predominantly, we spent the time discussing what the HLC has proposed so far in terms of revisions to their HLC ordinance and look at how that could coincide with ABR ordinance. So we looked at a lot of their provisions were things like applicant shall do this, applicant shall do that. And one thing we discussed was having more of a toolbox, like to the effect of these are effective ways to mitigate mass, bulk, and scale. So applicant may consider these 5 ways to mitigate these things. So rather than say you have to do each one of these, you may say, well, you may do 3 of these 5 things. So you can kind of prioritize how you might mitigate mass, bulk, and scale, which I think is a more flexible way of looking at things. Mm-hmm. So all these things are still under review. Hopefully other subcommittee members can make it to the following meetings.
Is there a next meeting?
I don't know if that's been agendized yet. Do you know, Susan?
Well, no, it hasn't.
Okay.
So I had an email exchange with Jaime about it, and I told him that I could, if he wanted to schedule the next meeting for November, sometime in November, that I could make it.
Okay,
but
great.
that October was just turning out to be too crammed with other things for me.
Sure.
And other commitments. So that's why I left it with him. And but I do have a question for you. So the whole review of the notes that had been amassed from the HLC's comments on the AUD ordinance. That's what's being studied and reviewed.
Well,
Is that correct, or
that's
now it's
kind of-
shifted into something else?
That's kind of phase one.
Okay.
It's just to look at what they've done so far and comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Phase two will be to kind of look at, are there any things that we might share? And then phase three would be, well, what would be specific to ABR?
Okay.
And the goal is to kind of craft general guidelines to help us review and help applicants, in their design. One guideline we thought about was if you have a third or fourth story roof deck located in an area of the building where it would be the least impactful in terms of privacy for the neighbors. Kind of common sense things like that that may or may not make it onto a design that'll be helpful for everyone involved.
So,
Well, just one other thing to follow up. Again, originally Jaime was saying that he was hoping that the ABR comments would coincide with and basically be a boilerplate copy of HLC. It doesn't sound like that's going to be the case, and we would have our own set.
Well,
Or is that still in
At
question?
the last meeting, it was just my voice. I have a particular slant on things. Howard may have a different slant on things. So it's helpful to have everyone there to get everyone's opinion. My guess is there'll be some overlap and some discord between us and HLC.
I wrote in a letter to whoever the person was in charge. Did they read that, or did they discuss any of those things?
I think we looked at it, and they thought it was a good letter. It didn't really specifically address
No
some of the-
language, just concepts.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're trying to distill it down to to implementation of particular guidelines.
Well, one of the thrusts of the letter was the quality of urban open space on the ground is gradually being eroded by the density of these projects. More and more open space is being put on upper levels and right at the property line and so forth. And the other one was about slowing down the rate at which these projects are approved, because it originally was intended for 250, and I think there's more than 2,000 in the system now. And there's no end in sight at the rate they're going. And they have 8 years, I guess 6 more years for this program to be implemented.
Yeah.
Did
I
they
mean, I
discuss
would
the
look at
rate?
those numbers. I mean, a lot of those units are housing authority units, which really shouldn't be included in that 2,000 count. And I'm dubious about the 2,000 count. A lot of projects start and then never get off the ground.
Right.
Well, they have in the system was one of the things of getting the shoe in the door. That was pointed out at the meeting by city staff at city council.
Yeah. I think of it as kind of a planning commission, city council issue in terms of prescribing how many units. I'm here to describe what the units look like and how they fit
Fair
within the
enough,
city.
not our purview.
Yeah.
So who is on the committee? And
Myself, Kirk, and Howard.
Yes,
I'm an
but
alternate.
I have yet to attend a meeting. And if either of you feel like you have the time to contribute towards that and are interested, you're welcome to take my place, because my time is limited right now, and I won't be able to make every meeting. It's very likely.
That's very good. This to me is a very vital thing that's happening, and does impact design review. And I think the more participants we can and more input we have, the better it will be. I mean, it's great to have two, but we have two very qualified people.
Would you like to take Mr. Chair's place on that
Well,
subcommittee?
I am an alternate at this
But yeah,
point.
I know you're an alternate, but it might be.
I think the way Jaime described it, 3 was better, and you were an official member, Howard.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. But what
Now,
about...
originally Jaime was asking for 1 volunteer, and then 3 of us raised our hand. He said, "Oh, okay, well maybe we'll have 3."
slip this in.
But
I think everybody raised their hand.
I'm wondering also, since we all have an interest and have thought about it quite a lot, if we shouldn't make it an agenda item and spend a half hour on it as a group.
Can do that.
Or a
and-
subcommittee, maybe?
Huh? Well, I'm just saying put it on the agenda.
Agenda item.
And
As a
in 2
discussion
weeks.
item?
Yes,
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
Okay, that'd be
I
good.
think that would make sense
Yeah.
because it is a pretty big issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
very big.
I like that.
And how many people on the HLC side?
I think there might be half a dozen.
Yeah, so it
So-
would make sense to have the same number of voices.
Yeah, and I think also I'll ask Jaime to distribute the pages he gave us to everyone,
Yeah.
so have a chance to review it
That'd be good.
ahead of time, collect our comments, ahead of
Is
time.
that meeting today, Scott?
No, it was last week and then
Yeah.
postponed indefinitely until November. I
Oh,
guess.
the meeting last week was postponed?
No, we had it last week, and there
When
wasn't.
you
a
were on
meeting.
vacation. It happened when you were on
Right, right.
vacation, yeah.
So what happened? It postponed?
No, we had the
No.
meeting. It was just me.
It was just
Oh, I
Scott.
see.
Yeah.
Got it, I get it, okay.
Okay, so do you want me to change that makeup to Gradine Hopkins Wittosh with an alternate of Kung? Because it says Gradine Hopkins and then alternates Wittosh Kung. So did you say Howard was supposed to be on there?
I think we discussed with Jaime that Howard would be a bona fide member.
Right.
I'd be willing to be an alternate or part of it.
Okay,
Whichever.
terrific.
See, that's the thing, is that I think there are a lot of interested parties in our,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, well, since Amy just volunteered, do you want to take my place? And I'll be the alternate.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that.
right.
But I would also like to make it an agenda item. That way we don't have to schedule another separate meeting where we all can have our input.
Okay, so it's still going to be then Amy and Scott
Howard.
and Howard. Okay. All right.
With Miller and Gradine as alternates. We're both alternates. Is that okay with you?
Miller?
More.
Yeah, I'm happy
Oh,
to,
okay.
happy to contribute.
Okay, so Howard, Amy, and Scott on the subcommittee with alternates of Kirk and Kevin.
Yes.
So
Thank
we'll
you.
make those changes on there. Thank you. And then I'll so how long do you want, like a half an hour?
Yes.
45 minutes?
I think you better do 45.
45.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And is 2 weeks out too soon?
No.
Okay.
In 2 weeks then, right?
Weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we can start the regular agenda for this evening with item number 1, which is a new item, 115 West Pedregosa Street. You mind reading that out for us?
Sure thing. Okay. 115 West Petrogosa Street, proposal for a new dwelling unit using the AUD program. The proposal is to demolish an existing 270 square foot detached garage and construct a new 318 square foot detached one-car garage with workshop and 92 square foot entry and stair leading to a 310 square foot studio apartment on the second floor. Total square footage of the new structure would be 720 square feet. Also proposed is one uncovered parking space. An existing 926 square foot one-story dwelling unit at the front of the parcel would only have one very minor operation at the rear. There will be 17 cubic yards of grading excavation and 11 cubic yards of gravel fill, with 2 small fruit trees removed. The residential mix will be 1 2-bedroom unit and 1 studio unit, with an average size of 660 square feet. The proposed density of this 4,200 square foot parcel will be 27 dwelling units per acre on a parcel with a general plan land use designation of medium-high residential, 15 to 27 units per acre. Staff hearing officer approval is required for zoning modifications to encroach into the interior yard and rear yard setbacks.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We have your names.
I am Nancy Mulholland. I am the owner of the property at 115 West Pedregosa and the applicant. This is my husband and partner in this project, Mark Zapp, and we're here to hear your thoughts. I do have a statement. Oh, the architect in this project is our daughter, Terry, who is an architect in Seattle with a specialty in renovation and remodeling of early to mid 20th century homes. So we're very lucky to have her in this process. I have a statement from her. She cannot be here today. She is in Seattle. I have a statement as far as the design goals for the project. Would that be of help?
It might. let's see, we have half an hour for this project, and normally we allow 10 minutes for the presentation portion. So if you feel like you can read that and also kind of walk us through the project and the drawings in 10 minutes, then please go ahead.
I think so. I
Okay.
think it will probably walk you through as much as anything.
All right.
So the design goals for the project were to minimize the size and height of the new building and maximize open space and gardens, to break down the massing of the building form to create architectural interest, maintain solar access and privacy, and to avoid a monolithic box feeling. These are things that we asked Terry to incorporate into this. To create a structure which feels subordinate to the original historic home. Our home at 115 at the front of the lot is possibly a historic structure of merit. We've been talking to Nicole about whether we want to do that or not. But we definitely want to keep that as the main focus of the property. To create a differentiated yet compatible secondary structure which echoes the form, scale, and style of the original historic house, but without copying it exactly. Because we have a very small lot, or a relatively small lot, it's 4,200 square feet, and garden space is a priority to Mark and I. The size of the structure is the minimum possible allowed by the code. We're going for a 400 square foot dwelling unit. The building height is also minimized with a ridge height of 21 foot 9 inches. This is lower than the building to the southwest of our neighbors. And the massing of the proposed structure is broken up by a ground level bump out at the garage so that the garage itself comes forward and in line with the driveway. The secondary low roof and carriage doors create a scaled down facade visible from the street. And then there are upper level bump outs which create added space in the studio and add some interest to the exterior form. They also provide sheltered exterior entries to the studio and the workshop. And finally, to create a structure which feels subordinate to the original house, it was located at the rear of the yard. Its size and height are minimized, and some features were simplified. The roof pitch, the materials, and the form will match the original house, as would be the divided light windows and exterior trim details. Board and batten siding is proposed to differentiate the new secondary structure from the historic house. And the current garage, which was built sometime after the house, we don't know dates, has original board and batten siding, and there are also other historic buildings on the same block with board and batten siding. So that's kind of it. We basically asked Terry to design us an area where we could use for guest quarters, since our little house that we love is not meeting that anymore for our growing family. We'd like this second unit to be available as a rental unit, possibly in the future. And because Mark and I hope to stay where we are and age in place, we see it as a place for a caregiver down the road.
Okay. So this is the front building existing to remain.
Existing, yes.
And this is where the addition's occurring.
Yes.
2 stories.
2 stories.
Driveway's here.
Driveway, existing
That's
driveway
correct.
there with the Hollywood strip down the middle. That's current.
Which is currently brown.
Which is currently brown. The grass isn't growing. The second parking place would be in a patio combination here.
Okay.
I think it's probably, I don't know if it's important or not design-wise, but for use under Mark and my ownership, we gave away the last car 4 years ago, so this bike workshop here is much more important to us than the actual garage, but we know we need to design for that in mind. So, and there is your footprint of the first story with the bike workshop. The single car garage, this is the slight bump out, so that becomes the predominant visual thing that you see from the driveway, or from the street for that matter. The entrance to the unit, halfway down the back. This is the unit on top. I think it's 310 square feet, plus the entranceway brings us up right to 402 square feet, reaching our goal of minimizing. She's used these bump outs to get a little bit more space for the kitchen, the dining area. And there are your elevations. This is the street view with the garage opening to the workshop. The bump out up above. This is the north elevation. I always have to think about this because our lot is actually on a 45, but we're calling this the north elevation. The entrance to the unit. This is a window into the workshop. This is the second story kitchen area.
Okay.
This is the east elevation. This elevation actually backs up to the adjacent property. Behind our property is a two-story apartment facility, and there is a picture of it. It is a blank wall that has no windows, there you are, or doors on it. Actually,
The side of that?
yeah, there should be another picture that actually shows you that
Is that it?
element of it. Yes, yes. And we will be asking for modifications on this as far as setbacks. And one of the modifications is along this elevation where it'll be set back. This part of it will be 6 feet back, and that's the modification. But we don't anticipate problems because there's an apartment with no privacy issues behind us.
So the modification is because the second floor needs to be 10 foot?
Correct.
And instead
And
you're
it'll be
providing 6?
6,
Okay.
correct. And the other modification is the 3-foot modification along the interior wall where the current garage sits and lines up with the driveway. Yeah, thank you. So the modifications are here and here for the second floor, here for the first story.
So this is how much of a setback? 6 feet?
The 6 feet there.
Okay, so it's 2 second-story 6-foot setbacks. Is that right? This
No.
side and this side?
This is one story. Oh,
No,
wait.
I mean, there's a modification for this side yard setback and for this side yard setback.
Correct. There's a modification for a 3-foot setback here at the garage level, and one for both the first and second level at 6 feet here.
Okay, got it. Okay.
To the stairwell and the second story.
Okay, so the hatched area is the second floor.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
I think that's all I have to tell you. You ask me questions?
Well, yes, we'll go on to, there's no one in the public that wishes to address this project, so we'll go on to questions from the board. Howard, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Amy.
No questions.
What's the current footprint of the garage? Is it essentially this unchanged, or is it?
No, it is smaller. We have to enlarge the footprint of the garage in order to get the second-story minimum apartment. Current square footage on the garage is 200 and... 70. Thank you, 70. I should turn my own around so I can read this. 270, and we're going to 318, I believe. Is what we're...
Does the current garage enter into any of the setbacks right now?
Yes, the current garage is sitting at 3 feet from this property line and 3 feet from this property line.
Okay. Is there a demo plan on there?
I think it's dashed in.
Is it?
The actual old garage is dashed in.
Okay.
And the demo plan is to demolish the one-car garage.
Yeah, it's tiny, isn't it? Yep. Okay, that's it.
It is currently lilting.
Yeah,
It's on its way over.
it's not wrong.
Our understanding is the oldest records that we can find is that the house was built in, well, the oldest records are 1925 when the chimney was replaced after the earthquake. So the 1922 is the date that is generally addressed when you talk about the house. I really don't know how long the garage has been there.
Okay. Okay, Scott, any questions?
No questions.
Comments, Howard? And if you could address the modification issue as well.
I understand this project. I think it's very appropriate to the site, and it's been done very nicely. I can support the modifications for this. And the only comments I have would be to look to the landscaping and some of the hardscaping, maintain the charm that you have there now. I think I'd love to live in that little studio. It's cool. I like the idea that there is a bike shop on the property where people can say bike shop there?
The bike workshop. Yeah.
Bike workshop.
There's
support that.
actually more bikes than that right now. We're trying to cut down.
No, don't cut down.
It is
This
our
is
major
good.
source of transportation, so
That's great.
for us, the bike workshop. It could be any kind of workshop. The space of it, for us, it will be a bike.
For this size parcel, and in this neighborhood, this is exactly what the AUD program really is all about. Is a modest increase in the number of occupants on the property that is very sympathetic to the existing development and the surrounding development. So I really like this project.
Does anyone have a differing viewpoint?
I just have one or two comments aside from that.
Okay, go ahead.
The only thing that I think might improve this project, I like the project a lot, by the way, is just the wayfinding to the back unit. And it's a little kind of tricky to find your way back there. I don't know if you're tending to come down this side yard or walk down the driveway.
No, you have to come down the driveway. There is not room here. The original house is sitting
Oh, I
again
see,
at
there it
3
is right
feet
there. Okay.
within the property line. So wayfinding would be to come down
Yeah.
the garage, or if you're driving, park your car and go in.
And maybe that's as simple as sort of carriage lamp on the corner, which kind of
Yes.
signifies something that
Okay.
just helps, if I'm visiting the back unit, how
Great.
do I find my way to that door? Maybe there's some paving pattern, something, it doesn't need to be much, but some modest clues that kind of point the way.
Point the way.
Other than that, I think I agree with everyone else's comments. It's nice.
Big sign with an arrow on the garage door. Be good.
Right.
I have one small comment to add, if I
Yeah.
could. So the board and bat siding, I understand that it is dissimilar from the lap siding of the front. That's okay. But it looks to me like it's plywood, rough sawn plywood with strips on it. And I would maybe ask you to study that, to make the strips a little bigger, wider, and closer together, so it looks more like a real board and bat siding, as opposed to the World War II version of that.
I also understand, and I do not know the terminology for this, but that there is a style of reversed
Yes.
wooden batten,
Would be even better.
which they, Terry and
Terry
her
has done that.
her contractor husband are suggesting would be an easier way to do
That
it
would
as
work.
well.
That
Would
would
work
work,
well.
yeah.
Okay, good. Can I ask a question or
Sure.
advice?
Sure.
One of the things that I'm struggling with on this property that I love so much is all of this paving. And it all needs to be permeable, I know that. Do you have any recommendations of what kind of permeable paving? I personally find aesthetically it hard visually for me to look at all the little small interlocking pavements. We have talked about the possibility of doing like 3x3 poured in place concrete with the 1.5 inches between,
3 inches or so.
3 inches between, that could have planting in it. And I find that a little bit more pleasing. Are there other suggestions for how to not make that such a dominating feature?
Well, I wonder if you could do grass block.
Yeah.
The grass block where it grows up through?
Yeah, especially if you're not going to be using it for cars very much.
All right.
It'll look like a lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. right.
That's one option. Another, I saw a photo recently of permeable concrete,
We had this discussion this
because our-
morning.
which actually has an aged look to it because it's because of all the air holes, I guess.
I don't know what
it's
it
kind-
looks
it's-
like. Our son-in-law, who's a contractor in the Seattle area, and some of the projects that he's worked on, I've talked to him, and he said that was required because they're looking at storm runoff the same way. And, but he didn't have any pictures. I've never actually seen it.
So, and other board members can make suggestions as well, but I just a couple of weeks ago, I saw a photograph where it had been done, and it has, like I said, has kind of have a natural aged look to it. But you could also look at some of these corners. You could have some little planter pockets here and there that would help to soften it, as opposed to like pouring it right up to the building everywhere.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
I agree with those, and I think that paved area is you call it a place to park a car, but in fact, actually, it's going to become a usable area.
Yeah, it'll be our patio.
And with
for us.
tables and chairs and things that may not fit well with a brick or even this grasscrete, whatever they call it. The idea of large format pieces with the 3-inch gaps for permeability works really well. Also, if you were to use the gaps as kind of maybe brick strips and leave gaps in the brick so that you can have permeability, but that would give kind of a nice, maybe a broader pattern, a little less busy, and still accommodate the tables and chairs that are eventually going to be there.
Okay. And right now, we have a fair amount of brick paving in the backyard.
Saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of which will get torn out
That's the
for this
charming part.
project.
Yeah,
That's his work.
nicely done.
The other thing I would, other board members may know the code on this issue, but just wanted to make sure that you're not going to run into issue with the second floor overhang, because I realize your building wall is at 6 feet, but you have, what, a 30-inch overhang that goes past that? So you're going to want to make sure with the staff hearing officer that they understand that there is that overhang going further into the setback.
You can project it.
1/3 into the minimum
Yeah.
setback required.
You can project
Well,
it.
I think it's that the floor can't go into that setback, but the seat can. So if it's a bay window with a seat, I believe that's allowed.
It's not a bay, but
No,
it's
you
just
wouldn't have
the-
any bay, it
it's
would just be the
eave.
roof eaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But does that, so
So if your setback is 3 feet, I think your overhang maximum is 1 foot.
Okay,
But check the code on that.
okay.
I thought it was 24 inches, actually.
What do you thought it was?
Isn't it 24 inches?
I'm sure it is.
I think
I think it's
typically it is, but if you're seeking a modification to project a second floor into the required 10-foot, you're going to 6 instead of 10, does that mean your eave needs to be clipped at that point, or how far can you additionally project? That's what I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Valid.
We'll have her check it.
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay, so we need a motion.
I'll move. What are we doing with this?
Positive comments to the staff hearing
This
officer.
is a concept review.
Indefinite
Indefinite
continuance.
continuance.
with positive comments to the staff hearing officer.
That there is no adverse visual impact to the encroachments
Adverse.
proposed.
Can I second that and add some comments regarding the modification?
Yes.
I think that the board supports the modification for these reasons. One, there's a unique condition with the adjacent apartment building that has no windows, so it's appropriate to go closer to the property line there. Secondly, the existing garage has kind of established some ground floor setbacks that wouldn't be changed. So there's some unique circumstances that make the modification supportable.
We could also add that from the site plan, it's apparent that there are encroachments on setbacks at adjoining properties in that same location on the parcel. So it's in conformance with a pattern that's already established.
Given the age of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I did.
question on that?
Yes.
Tell me what indefinite continuance means.
That
Where do you
means,
go with this?
so to get on the staff hearing officer agenda, it'll probably take you a month or more.
Okay.
And then once you're done there, then you get back on the ABR agenda, so then you can get your next approval from us.
Okay. And at that point, what will we need? What will you want?
Well,
You can contact me.
yeah,
You'll
she can
walk
give
us
you
through it.
details on that.
You are
yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
You guys get to keep one
Yeah,
set.
you can keep
We only need one for the record. So you can take that home with you.
Oh,
Actually,
oh,
you take that one too.
and this one.
Thank you, folks, did pass down the photos.
Susan, you want this one?
You do want the book? No.
We have one already. We just need
So we
one.
have two.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very nicely presented, by the way. I know you had a lot of help, but it's well done.
These are novices.
Item number 2, 1200 Block Cliff Drive. This is a review after final. Change to an approved small cell wireless project to propose the installation of a 43-foot tall wood utility pole in lieu of the previously approved 28-foot 5-inch wood utility pole. The antenna will be mounted at 41 feet 5 inches in lieu of the 27 feet 2 inch. All other aspects of the project will remain unchanged. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Tricia Knight, representing Verizon Wireless. And I just thought I'd walk you through just a little bit of the history of why we need this new pole. We did submit some information to planning, but I just wanted to go over that with you briefly. This area is up by City College, trying to cover some of that heavy residential traffic up there. In March of 2016, we came in with a antenna on the pole top here at an overall height of 31 feet, and that was approved. And then we came back, and that's when we just started learning about small cells around this time. This is sort of a new technology. And SCE came back with the separation requirements for what they require for antennas to even be on that pole. And so we sort of got the cart ahead of the horse. And so those requirements are that the top of the antenna needs to be 1 foot 6 inches from the top of the pole, which you can clearly see we do not meet. And then there's also required separations from guy wires. And we have to have 6 feet of separation from that guy wire. And so we started looking at what that would take, and it looked like we would have to replace the pole in order to meet those requirements. And so they come in predetermined lengths. And so with not only the length of the pole, there has to be the footing in the ground. And so in order to get all these separations, we ended up having to go with a 50-foot pole that will have a 7-foot embedment, which gives us the current design that you're looking at. And I can actually probably get a better idea on here. Don't mind, let me turn to the right page, which is right here. So you can see, oops, sorry, thank you, that we have the 1 foot 6 inch clearance as well as the minimum 6 foot. Now what they did here is they started with that 1 foot 6 inch, then whatever this distance was to the first guy wire turned out to be 9 feet 5 inches. So it's just that the poles come, if you're going to replace the pole, they come in these predetermined lengths. And in order to meet all those requirements, that is what we ended up with. And so I think you guys have seen the photo sims, but I will put it out there. And so as previously approved here, just to sort of do a side-by-side, and then you have this installation here. And so here's, and I'll pass this around for a closer look for all of you. But so there's the taller pole with the side-mounted antenna as reflected in the plans. None of the support equipment or anything is changing. It just turned out that in order to get, so alternatively also, we did look at alternate poles, and I can go over that. When we looked at this, I said, well, we need to make sure that this is the only pole that we can go on and get those clearances. And so I did bring some photos that I can go through on those alternate poles that we looked at in the area that right above City College here.
alternate locations for a pole of this height, or other poles that you could mount the same equipment on?
Ideally, we would look at, existing poles are ideal for us, and so we started looking around and saying, okay, here's this existing pole line that's across the street, and then there was one additional pole, but it's a guy pole only, so it's a straight pole with just the guy wires for the poles across the street, and we're not allowed to mount on those at all, so we had to only look at a row of poles across the street. And so what we did is, there's alternative site analysis here that was submitted to planning. And so as you can see, these are the types of poles that we were working with. And so we looked at, I'll show you the map really quick here. Sorry, I keep flipping, I'm just trying to give relevance. So here's our proposed location right here, like this, proposed location here. And then we looked at, so there's that pole line I was showing you across the street. And there's this blank lot right here, which seemed to make sense in order to try to find room for the equipment, because that's on the ground. And there was also what appeared to be room to do so. And so we went back to PG&E, or I'm sorry, SCE, and started looking at, for example, could we mount right in here on the existing pole, in between cross arms, getting those still distances. There's no guy wires on these poles. And as it turns out on this particular pole, we would have to actually mount the equipment on the pole, and it doesn't meet the there's a structural zone that the utility needs in order to access anything on that pole, and we would have to have the meter on this pole because the ground space was not available, and so unfortunately that did not work, let alone we didn't have the separation from the comm line. So then we went to, so that was this pole here, then there's this pole here. We thought, well, what about going below here? There's room, and we did find a corner over here for the equipment, but they have a support structure zone that is 16 feet from the ground up. And once we got down into this level and got separation from those above lines, there was not enough separation there either. And so we circled back to the current design that's before you right now. I know it's a lot of information, so I'll wait for any questions.
Okay, we'll open public comment. Seeing no one, we'll go to questions.
There was an email.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
there was,
Thank
okay.
you. Yeah. So we have one public comment from Carolyn and Bill Kyle. Regarding the hearing to be held today, we wish to comment on the Verizon cell pole abutting our property on Cliff Drive. We are aware that this hearing is for design review only, but before the process begins, we would like to register our objection to the placement of something 43 foot tall in our backyard. Since there is a commercial area on the mesa, Meigs and Cliff Drive, it would seem this would be a more logical site for placement of something as intrusive as a tall tower. We are part of a 14 residents association stretching from Vista Pacifica to Pacific View, both off of Cliff Drive. Our home is 342 Vista Pacifica, backs onto Cliff Drive. Any poles would impact not just our property, but impact the view of the homes across Cliff Drive from us and would not enhance the aesthetics of a Santa Barbara residential area. Since the ABR is a body appointed to focus on neighborhood compatibility, aesthetics, and design issues, we would ask that you give the above careful consideration as you review even the possibility of approving this tower. All right, we'll close public comment. Questions, Scott?
Can you go over what the height was before and what you're proposing?
Sure. So as proposed before, it was, where do I go? Here. So as proposed before, I'm just going to switch this around for my bad eyes. The top of the existing utility pole was 28.6, and the approved overall height with antenna was 31 feet. And that was in March.
Antenna width, what's the width of 31 feet antenna width?
Oh, no, not width, height. So it's 28 feet to the top of the pole, and then a 2-foot antenna on top of that
I see.
for an overall height of 31 feet as originally approved.
Okay.
Okay. And then the new proposed height?
The new proposed height is 43 feet.
43 feet, so 12 feet taller.
Correct.
Okay, and you mentioned all the factors, the guy wires and the other comm lines and such. The existing pole that you looked at that had it was just a guy wire pole.
Yes.
Did you look at the possibility of replacing that with a taller pole and still using it for guy wires?
They don't allow any, for whatever reason. SCE is different. I'm in San Luis Obispo County, we're PG&E, and they do allow, but SCE does not allow guy wire installations for antennas, and I'm not sure if it's a structural thing or whatever
Okay.
it is.
And so the pole itself is 50-something feet, and you're burying
7 feet of it, correct.
Can you bury more in the ground?
Here's what I came up with, and I apologize if this is inappropriate. We're trying to fine tune this as I was moving towards meeting with you, and so I kind of came up with a backup plan. Is that appropriate right now?
Sure.
Okay. So as I started looking at this occurred to me that we've got 6 feet that needed, but we were 9.5. Why are we 9.5? Okay, so we got the 1'6", but why don't we move the antenna down to get that 6 foot of clearance and then cut the rest of the pole up if we don't need it? So that's what I brought. And I knew that's probably where we'd end up. And so I wanted to sort of talk through it, and I didn't know if it was appropriate to bring new plans, but I do have them. So, and I brought a photo sim as well. And so that's what it would look like if we still got our clearances, but then we would have to apply with a new application for SCE when they install that pole to cut off the portion that we don't need. And so it looks like this.
This is a concrete pole?
This is, no, it's a wooden pole.
Wooden pole.
Wooden pole. So same concept, but now I'm back down to just my 6 feet of clearance instead of that 9.5. And then I've got my antenna that I've moved down to get that clearance. Now I need obviously another foot, 1'6" per the guidelines that SCE has from the top of the antenna to the top of the pole. So that takes me from 38.1 plus another foot and 6 inches is about 39.
7.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So that's
Yeah, so that takes me down from that
4 feet.
43. Yeah, so it's 4 feet smaller.
And the reason you didn't show it cut off is why?
Because I didn't know if that was going to be. I was sort of keeping this on the side. I didn't know if it was appropriate to bring something an alternate plan today, so it would be right in there.
Tell me why the top of the pole has to be taller than the antenna? Because we've seen the antenna mounted on top of the pole.
And for whatever reason, in San Luis Obispo, it has to do with whatever wires are on that pole. And so this particular instance, they have to have, and I don't even know why, but they have to have that 1'6" clearance, and that's on all antenna installations. And so I'm not exactly clear as to why that is, but our application came back with those requirements.
Okay. But we've seen many applications where the antenna is right on top of the pole.
And it might be due to the existing lines that are on this pole here that you have to have. Maybe it's for climbing maintenance. Each pole is reviewed, and it comes back and says, this is what we need you to do in order to locate on this pole.
Okay. And so this is an existing pole, and you'd be restringing the existing lines to this pole?
No, we would have to replace this. So we'd be replacing it with that same 50-foot pole, 7 foot buried. But instead of the previous plan where I had more distance here because they started with the 1'6" at the top, now I've asked them to move it down to get the 6 foot clearance and then go ahead and adjust accordingly on top by cutting it off.
And the height is determined by guy wires?
Correct, guide wires and also climbing space when they need to get on that pole. And so
Would you need guide wires with another material like concrete, or?
the guy wires that this will be
Yeah.
attached to, I think they'll just use the existing guy wire mounting
But if
at
the height of the pole is determined by the guy wires, or what the antenna is there a way to mount the pole without guy wires so that the pole, everything could be lower? Does that make sense?
guy wire. So removing the guy wires from this
Yeah.
particular pole, is that what you're saying?
Would it allow you to lower the antenna?
That was not an option presented to us by SCE. It's more like, here's the guidelines if you want to work on this pole, otherwise we can't have you on this pole. So we
Okay.
don't, I think
So there are existing lines that need to be restrung to this new pole?
Correct.
Okay, so there's probably some tension
Yes,
in the guy
I would
wires are needed.
imagine,
Okay.
to an existing system that
Okay.
only they understand, I would
Is this a
imagine.
wooden pole?
It is a wooden pole, yes.
So would a steel pole be less flexible and maybe not
You
need
know,
guide
it's
wires?
not, I don't think the material it matters so much. I think it's more the, just making sure we could do a steel pole. I don't think that would be a problem.
I'm just asking because the guy wires seem to be a wrinkle in this.
Okay, let's, Scott was in the questions,
so
and
that's
then
a-
we'll move along.
Okay.
Those are the extent of my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, my question is, so per the letter we received, why is this the place on the mesa that this has to happen?
If you remember the pole lines that I showed you, guys, let me do this.
Is it a coverage thing? It has to be here to
It's coverage
reach
and
these people?
capacity. Yeah, absolutely. Right now, the college kids that are up there are using insane amounts of data for all the things that they do on that campus and the surrounding residential neighborhood. And so Verizon does its best to use these small cell installations. I mean, I've been before with the macro cell sites, which are the trees and the water tanks and all that. So
I understand. So it has to be within X feet of this area, or
it's in a ring right in here. And so we looked at the poles on each side of the street, these being ruled out for the same separation requirements as the existing one.
so it can't. You're saying it cannot go closer to the more commercial part of
Correct,
that
because we're
and
trying to
still
cover
function.
the people that are using it. Yeah, and that's what you're going to find a little bit more and more as the data is such an issue with keeping current with the needs of the people that are using it.
Okay. So you looked at sites farther down Cliff Drive as well?
This is the area. So
That's
what we
just where you look.
Yeah, this is it's a pretty small area. That's what these small cells are. They're not miles and miles. They're blocks and blocks, and usually a block or two. And so we get this very small area, and that's the small cell is a good relationship because we are a utility, and so we're working with the utilities, but it's a fairly new relationship with respect to us utilizing their poles. So that's where the learning curve comes in.
Okay, those are my questions.
Okay. Amy, questions?
I guess picking up on what Kevin was talking about, did you look at going closer to where City College is in that area that goes down the hill where there are no
Absolutely.
poles
There's
backed up
going to
to
be
it?
additional sites that way and additional sites this way because they cover such a small area and they all come before you on a case-by-case basis. But so it will be piecemealing, and we are going to be going closer to City College, and we're also going to be going closer to Korea. And so it's right now this is for this immediate need.
And was the previous antenna was not on top of the pole?
It was on top of the pole. So that was...
So I guess that's kind of confusing, just based on that was located on top of the pole,
And it
but
got
now,
denied,
But
yeah.
now and that's what you're saying they denied it because it has to be the 1'6".
inch. So we got it approved here, and then we went and got information back from the utility
Okay.
saying that's not a
Okay.
design that we
All right,
can
that's-
support.
yeah, I just wanted to double check that.
Sure.
That was it.
Okay. Howard.
What's happening on the ground? What changed on the ground?
Nothing's changed on the ground from its previous
Hedge,
approval.
screen,
Everything is exactly
everything,
the same.
chain link, that's all the same.
That's correct. Nothing else is
Mahogany green,
changing.
everything.
Everything.
So, wooden pole, I'm kind of asking this question, putting my hand in the river now, knowing that the river is going to move downstream and something else is going to happen in the next decade. And things are going to get smaller and more powerful. And maybe we won't be constrained to use a antenna that has to be mounted 1'6" down from and offset by and at this location. Maybe they'll be less frequent, they'll cover more area. So, so this pole, whose pole is this?
This is Southern California Edison's pole. And what we do is enter into a joint pole agreement that sort of says, hey, if you meet all these requirements, which is what I'm talking, all these separation requirements, and you can find room for the equipment in the meter and so on and so forth, then it's almost like a master lease agreement.
They say this.
They say this.
And so are they the ones that denied the pole on the
Correct.
on top? Southern California.
Yes. So we have to turn in a Form 2 application to them with all of these details and drawings, and then it goes through their system, which took longer than it did for us to get before this board.
So when was the last time that SCE approved an antenna on top of a pole? Did they ever do it?
To my knowledge, they have in the past, and for whatever reason, which I'm not clear on, they don't do it anymore. These are the updated code requirements for antenna installations. So with these types of poles, with the guy wires and separation and everything, they don't do pole top installations anymore.
And so just to understand why this antenna, this installation grew by 10 feet is what? What's the big reason?
The big reason is that so when it comes time, if we were to construct this project, they do the work. We don't do the work. And so these
California
poles,
Edison.
Southern California Edison does the work. So these poles come in these predetermined lengths. And so I think it's 45 and 50 feet. To get the 1'6" and the 6, the 45-footer, because of the caisson that has to go down into the ground, would have not been sufficient. So we had to go to the predetermined next length, which is 50 feet. And so that's why I'm proposing now that we would get all the required separations and then cut off the pole at 39.7.
Okay. So then the previous pole, did it have the guys?
Yes, it currently has the guy wires on it, correct.
So those guys were at the same height on this
Correct.
shorter pole?
On a 28-foot pole,
So it just
correct.
didn't meet the accessibility, the construction worker access requirement,
6
clearance.
foot of separation from the top of the antenna to the top of the guy wire were too
For
low.
that reason.
Yes. So it was all technology driven. We were very happy with our existing approval. We liked the design, and it was a done deal.
So are
And
we.
so, yeah, I know, I know.
Sort of. Okay, I understand. No more questions.
Okay, last obvious,
Sure.
I know what the answer is, but there's no way to locate it on the other side of the street.
The other side of the street is even more problematic. It's got more wires. It's got more cross arms. It's got, we can't be into.
I know not, you can't go on an existing pole,
Oh.
but you can't add a new pole?
We probably could. It's just usually not what we're working towards in most jurisdictions, is to add a new pole when we don't need to with respect to undergrounding, I would mention one day.
Well, but if you, the way I'm seeing it is there's a series of poles already on that side of the street. Those views that are people up above and have ocean views, they're already looking through wires and poles.
Right, right.
So another pole, is it really going to make that much difference? Whereas on the other side of the street, there's very few, not many. Maybe I don't even see one on that photograph right there.
You'll see here, it's a little bit hard to see, but here's what this proposal would look like, obviously, with it
Yeah,
cut off right there. Yeah,
I see it.
And then there's just these 2 other poles here on that
Okay.
side of the street.
Yeah, as you go further down.
Yeah.
But that's quite a ways away. And then up the street, I don't see anyone, not a single one in that photo. So I'm just, to me, it's like, well, you've got the clutter already on the other side of the street. Why not just add another pole to the clutter rather than, going to the other side?
Yeah, there's separation requirements between poles, and then so we have to find new ground space. This just seems like a more logical, it's already been approved, screened, accepted, so it's definitely, something to consider. This just seemed a more acceptable
Okay.
solution at this juncture.
All right, so comments from the board. Howard, do you want to start? Or Scott? Unless
okay.
there's more questions.
Well, I have one quick question.
Yeah.
So on the side of the street that you are proposing to put this pole, this is an existing pole, but it's a Southern California Edison?
Correct. It'll be a
Pole?
replacement pole, and then we're locating with an encroachment permit in the right-of-way with our equipment.
Okay, and so this replacement pole, how does it compare to the other poles on that side of the street?
It'll look exactly the same and have the exact same apparatus on it, except for it'll be taller. So we're looking at, instead of the overall feet of 31 that was originally approved, we'd be looking at a height of 39.7. That's the only
So
difference.
39, and so the poles on either side, what are they?
They are 28.
Oh, I see. So this is going to be kind of like a monster pole.
It's taller. It's taller. Yeah.
Okay, so, sorry. You still asking?
Yeah.
I have a question when you're done.
All right, well, I
want to jump in with one more question. So you said that you're going to be stringing new or existing lines on this pole. Where are they coming from? Is it coming just across the street?
Yes. across the
Okay, so
street.
this is
I
a-
believe. I'm not 100% sure. I
Because
didn't-
I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, where are these existing lines? There's not a pole in sight. And if so,
Probably across the street. I think that's what I remember, because the next one down is just that guy pole, and that is stringing across the street.
okay, so this is just a branch line
Correct.
coming from the main line?
Correct.
Okay. And so there is an existing pole in that location, but it's a lot lower.
Of this pole? Yeah,
Yeah.
the 28 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, 31 is approved in March.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going from 20, what did you say?
It was 31 to the top of the antennas. It was previously approved, and we'll be going 39.7.
Okay, but there is an existing pole there right now?
Yes, there is. That's this
Okay.
pole. Yes,
Okay.
this pole in the bottom photo.
If you didn't add this antenna, the pole would remain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just the separation for the antenna.
It's a tough one to comment on. I was very much persuaded by Kirk's argument, then I realized, oh, there's already a pole there.
Yeah.
But I mean, Howard's right. It is going from a junior pole to a, maybe not a monster pole, but a senior pole at the very least.
This pole is how tall?
These poles are a little taller. I'd maybe say maybe closer to 30 feet, just a slightly taller, just to have more on them.
Yeah.
Are you coming across the street to get to this pole and then back across the street?
With
Are you double crossing the street with these lines?
the lines that are on this existing pole, just the guy wires.
On your project, are you,
No,
No wires.
no wires.
so you're staying on one side
We're
of the
staying
street?
on, everything's on one side. Equipment fully screened.
My comments.
Yes.
I think the height change is significant enough that it worries me that it'll be too big for the site. And I'd like you to study alternatives in terms of maybe there's two guide wires or stronger guide wires or more embedment. It seems to me there could be a structural solution to it to get the guide wires lower and keep the pole lower. Just saying that, well, the guide wires are this height, that's where we're going to keep it. It seems like there might be another alternative in there. Study it, and if it doesn't work, let's talk.
Okay.
But I'd like some assurance that, structurally, I know that you can find other ways of doing things. And a good
Yeah, I
structural.
wish it was up to us, it's just not. So I think
Yeah.
I'll have an SCE person come in next
And maybe
time.
you need to
Yeah.
hire your own structural engineer, demonstrate to SCE that there's another solution, just relying. If you just rely on.
Yeah, they don't allow it to do, but I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. More
Well, at the very least, you could show them that it is possible.
Yeah, they're not real big. They're the utility, and so they just tell us if you want to go on this pole, this is what we need you to do. So I hear what you're saying. I'll have SCE come in, and that way they're there to answer the questions, the guy wire questions, and the foundation questions.
Others may feel differently. That's my
Yeah,
take on it.
okay.
Any differing views? No?
Input.
Okay.
I mean, one of your responses to the questions was, well, we're going to be seeing more and more of these as we fill in this
absolutely.
area. Is there some sort of a master plan that we can see and try and understand?
It's because the carriers are qualified as a public utility, and so you're just going to, as the need arises, and what that looks like is that one day, they get a whole bunch of calls from City College that no one can do their homework because there's no this, that, and the other, and then they have to open up that ring. And then right now, you don't know what AT&T is going to do, what T-Mobile is going to do. This is the next wave of technology because it's smaller in size. I mean, this is much better than looking at a fake tree in your jurisdiction. This is much better than looking at the large equipment shelters with air conditionings. And so utilizing these existing poles is going to be coming down the line, yes.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it better to have one large antenna than 10 little guys strung along the street?
That's the question each jurisdiction asks, and that's always been the struggle. Would you rather see one co-located huge thing, or would you like to see a bunch of little ones? And that's sort of we've been going back and forth for years and years. There's really no great answer. It's, case by case.
so the 6 feet is, again, once again, the 6 feet is really for SCE to access your equipment on their pole.
Yes, or for us to access equipment.
Or
So
for
let's
you-
say they
or
had
for you.
to service those guy wires for whatever reason. They need to have enough separation from our antenna to ensure safety with their workers.
So the rest of my comments are, it would be great to understand the impact of seeing where all of these could be. I understand it may not be within your purview,
Yeah, definitely
But-
not.
it's good for us to know and to be able to visualize what and how many of these there could be. Is it one for every carrier, or are they going to be co-locating on these poles?
No, there's no co-location capabilities because of all of that. And on a carrier by carrier basis, there's no way to know. We tried a master plan with the big guys when they were all doing this, and it's just impossible. They're all public entities competing against each other. It's impossible to get a master plan. This is what you'll see, though. This is what they look like. This is what they're going to look like. You'll either have a 2-foot or 4-foot antenna on the side or somewhere on that pole with equipment on the ground or strapped to the pole. That's what they look like.
Okay, so just take these comments. Personally, I don't like the fact that the pole is growing and is further growing, and it sounds like these things are going to be popping up all down this street. So if there's a way to figure out, as Scott has suggested, to minimize the height on these things, that would be ideal. So I would encourage you to work with SCE again and figure out if there's a different pole type that can work without guy wires, structurally sound enough. So if it's steel, concrete, another option that can reduce the height of this pole, so we don't have, so the guy wires aren't driving the height of these little projects.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Do you want to make that into a motion?
Sure.
Before you do that, I just want to be clear on the project description, because now you're making comments to the new plans that she brought in, which, by the way, you are allowed to review because it's less intense. It's not. It's more intense. So that's why she is allowed to go ahead and present that.
Yeah.
So Tricia, what we had was review after final change to approved project to install a 43-foot tall utility pole in lieu of the previously approved 28.5. So it's not 43 though. What is it?
39.7.
39.7. And then the antenna will be mounted 41.5 feet in lieu of 27 feet 2 inches. Is that so? What's that change to?
38.1.
38.1 instead of 41.
Correct.
38 feet 1 inch. Okay, great. Thank you.
And I'll leave these with you, the plans with those modifications?
Just one.
Okay, just one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you like to come back in 2 weeks, or do you need more time than that?
You know, give me 2 weeks. Yeah, I think I can pull that off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this would be a motion for a 2-week continuance. Applicant to study alternate pole designs to reduce the maximum height.
Okay, I'll second that.
Straightforward.
We have a seconded by Scott. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you
a lot.
for coming in.
Absolutely.
So this is the set. That's
Yep, I'll leave that with Susan. Yep, I'll just get out of your way. This was the originals that I resubmitted, and then here's the ones that we revised. Yep, there you go. Thank you.
So the next
Thank you.
The next project is 116 East Coda Street. It's number 3 on our agenda. I don't see the applicant. There are. Okay.
I'll grab them.
Thank you. This is a project under the AUD incentive program. Proposal for a new 4-story mixed-use building on a 10,865 square foot lot adjacent to Plaza Veracruz. Project includes 15 two-bedroom, 2-bathroom residential units and approximately 738 square feet of commercial space.
Yeah.
We last reviewed it 2 weeks ago, and the project is seeking a project design approval after being revised from a previous project design approval. And our comments last time were as follows. Number 1, the board established that the project is moving in the right direction. Number 2, the board is concerned with the amount of metal and different types of metal screening proposed. Reduce, simplify, and or eliminate some of the different types and the amount of metal and metal screening being used, particularly at the stair tower. Number 3, study ways to break up the blockiness and sense of mass at the East Coda Street facade. Break up the roof line that becomes the cowl. Study the possibility of pushing the upper residential portion back away from East Coda Street to provide greater relief at the street elevation. That was number 3. Number 4, look for code exceptions available to the 4th floor rear stair tower. Number 5, study the possibility of raising the commercial parapet height. Number 6, study ways to break up the repetitive use of forms, particularly on the park-facing elevation. Number 7, study warming up the color palette and materials proposed to make the project conform better to the downtown Santa Barbara area. Number 8, return with more information on the perforated screens and supports. It's a 6-1 vote with Tripp opposed. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Your names, please.
Ken Vermillion, Design Arc.
Mark Kirkhart, Design Arc.
Sam Maphis, Earthform Design.
So, want to go through those one by one, or how do you want to?
Sure, absolutely.
All
So
right.
the first one being number 2, what we've done is we've come up with 2 metal systems. Brought in some samples. So what we've done is we've taken a woven steel mesh that would get a powder-coated painted finish for all of the guardrails for the decks, for the stair tower screen, and the front entry screen and gate, auto gate. So before we were talking about yes, so you can look at both views here. You'll notice also that we've dramatically reduced the amount of screen at the stair, and you'll see that better on the elevations. But basically, we've got to design just what's necessary to make guardrails for the actual stair landings that are, of course, halfway in between the landings for the floors above. So in the elevations, you'll see that the grid pattern is easier to see the difference between that. We've eliminated this horizontal rail, and we've changed that to the gridded woven mesh. And then the only other metal system we've got is the perforated steel or aluminum panels based on finish color that we're going for.
Yeah, so we're down to two metals.
Right.
I think we had
So
3 or 4 last time.
We had 3, and we've reduced it down to 2. So
This is kind of hard to read. How?
We'll show it to
the
you in
elevation is much easier to read. And, yeah.
A2.1?
Yes.
A201?
A2.
A201.
Sorry. So here it's going
Right.
like that. What we did did have it covering the entire, the entire plane. So now we have it moving so that it's only where the landings are. So it adds a little more playfulness to it, I think, as well.
And much more open, about half as enclosed as before.
Okay.
And then, so as we said, that mesh is the same mesh as the entry gates, same mesh as the auto gate, and then the metal railings wherever you see them when they're not perforated metal. So on the park facade, all these are the mesh, and then the singular panels are the perforated metal that then tie into the perf metal below for the parking garage.
Okay.
And the idea for the design of that is, this is an image we found on a project, but the idea was to vary the hole sizes and layout design so that it would essentially be something like this in a vertical orientation. So we'd get our ventilation for the garage with much more open air, and then as it went up and transitioned to the guardrails for these deck units and the ones above, it'd be much more solid, and we'd go to a much smaller hole.
Smaller
pattern.
holes.
These are a couple of physical
The idea of
samples.
that is that when you get up to the decks with a more dense, more metal, less holes, you have a little less, you still get air circulation through it, but you have a little bit less view through it, so it doesn't show off the things that people would have on their decks.
Especially the ones that are low on the second floor facing the park. We just brought in some other examples of custom perforations. One is a project that I've worked on previously, where it's basically water jet cut, so you could literally make up any art pattern or design that you wanted and have it fabricated into the panels. And some views of perf metal and the kind of range of transparency that you get. So this is all the same screen from the outside with the sun on it. It's very opaque. From a slight angle, you start to read what's behind it. And yet from inside, looking out, it can be very open. It's dependent upon, of course, where the sun is shining, whether it's on the surface or inside. So that's what we think is an interesting component.
And is that the finish too that you're proposing, or?
No, it'd be powder coated a matte color.
Okay.
And so we also,
Because these look like they're
That's just
more
natural.
like
No
this.
finish.
it's, yeah, like clear anodized, yeah. Which is great for
Someplace else.
weathering, but yeah. So we did a small sample of that facade to give a little bit more indication about what we're dealing with. So you can see how mostly opaque it is at the upper levels. Same with the guardrail for the unit on the second floor, and then transitions to a much larger hole size so that we can get our adequate garage ventilation. A couple other things you'll notice on this that we did along that facade was we broke the datum line that was running continuously down the park. So we have indeed pulled up the parapet for the commercial space, and we reduced the parapet, so to speak, of the planters along the rear elements. So this planter gets to be a tall planter from the street. The balcony gets a high 5-foot high guard wall, so you're more directed view-wise up into the mountain views and stuff, which we feel is a good trade-off. It's a little more private from the immediate street and the park access road. And that allowed us also to pull this eyebrow of the commercial up. So now the eyebrow is no longer in line with the other eyebrow, which is the cowl that wraps the units and the stairs. So we've broken that, we've pulled that up, and we've dropped the planters along the back. So that's, you get a bit of that here. These went down 2 feet from where they were at 3'6", and this side came up 18 inches.
This is not pitched like this, though, right?
No, this is just a
Cut line.
cut line of the rendering.
And then it's not going to be white. These we're showing closer to kind of more of a warm, almost a taupey color on these elements. Same around the front here, as opposed to white. So even though they show up, and they're showing up here pretty light here, but that's the idea is a kind of a warmer gray with a cooler gray.
Okay. And then the other component that we detailed out for you were the recessed portions of the units. These are the bedroom walls with the sliding glass doors. And so what we've got planned there, and kind of discussed this a bit, was a porcelain tile that mimics cold rolled steel and other metal finishes. So they would be in random patterns, a couple different heights in tile, and applied to the building in a pattern that would, bring out the warmth of the rolled steel, a concrete light gray steel color with some rust coloration to it for a bit of warmth, and then a more neutral light gray color. Some of what it looks like. You can see the warmth in the dark. These are small samples, of course, but these are 24 by 24 or 12 by 24 tiles, and you can see there's a lot of depth of color there and quite a bit of warmth to that. Those are the 4 color choices. So we like the durability, the maintenance aspect of this over real wood, especially close to the ocean. And we feel like that is the design component. It's this patterning, whereas everything else is simple plaster.
Oh, sorry. That might be end up being a little
the
lighter
heaviness,
gauge.
yeah, the heaviness of that is too heavy, but that's the only sample I could get.
Here.
But we're
There we go.
great. So that's what we're anticipating.
How do you like
Somewhere
the stakes?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 to 2 inch centers. This is a 2-inch center. This looks like it's 1.5.
The welded design, is that right? Or the woven
The woven design.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's going to be the finish of this?
It'll be painted.
What color?
We haven't decided on that exactly
Warm gray.
yet, but more like a warm,
We'll
deep
bring a color
charcoal
palette
gray.
for final.
How did we know that?
What will the finish of this be?
Same thing. Powder coated
Same.
on that.
Not this finish.
No, it won't be the
It will
clear
not be
aluminum.
natural aluminum.
And the whole pattern, is it going to be varied like the museum up in San Francisco? Same kind of a deal?
Where's the?
Yeah, we've got that image here. The idea is that, yes,
Want to take it back? Take it?
Sure.
Yeah.
it will be more dependent upon the function, so it won't be very
You're gonna be
amorphic,
able
but
to do this.
yes, yes.
Very nice. Sure. Yeah.
Can you, so, does this come up above that roof?
Yeah, this one parapet comes up above the eyebrow that.
But
see
it's,
it
so
on.
you're continuing this material?
It's the same plane,
It doesn't
correct,
show
yes.
the material here?
It's right here. Shows the lines on it.
Yeah, it's these guys here.
Isn't that set way back?
So
Like when you can
these-
Set quite a bit back, yes.
Okay, so basically these lines continue up above.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have the eyebrows before. Now we've got the eyebrows. We will need a parapet edge there because that eyebrow is thinner than the roof framing. So
And those are projecting how far?
the eyebrows,
Yeah.
the eyebrows are projecting.
Different on the park side. Looks like.
It is shallower on the park side than the front. You can see it's a much deeper overhang versus the park side.
So the minimum projection, is that it right there?
Yes.
What is that?
Looks like it's 2 feet.
It's
1 foot.
It's 4 feet back from the property line.
Right.
The glass line is 5'8" back from the property line.
Okay. So how about, looks like you eliminated the stair tower as well.
So what we did with the stair tower is we took the last run of stairs and made it exterior. So that allowed us to drop the parapet to the same as the 45-foot height limit parapets around the rest of the building. So essentially you'll go into the stair tower and down if you're a person, and if you're a maintenance person, you would go through another door. You'd be outdoors. There'd be a drain in the floor, and you'd walk up the stair that way. We understand there are exceptions in the code, but for the maintenance of 17 or more air handling units, condensers on the roof, we felt it was better to have a proper stair for people that are going up on the roof carrying equipment and
For maintenance.
and or the units themselves. And
So you can look at that, how that changed the back elevation.
right. So now we've matched the parapet along the rear.
And that's right here, so this used to come up. So that's now down to the parapet height as the rest of it.
Okay.
So color palette wise, we are definitely going toward the warmer tile selections and the warmer gray tones for the plaster.
Have your renderings there?
Yeah. See those best in the renderings. They must be over there, or they're in this too. So you can see there's the white. In comparison to the white, we've taken the base color stucco and changed it to a warm gray color. You can see it on that elevation too. And then these guys and the ones that step down along the part. There you can see the rhythm of the lower planters, the higher commercial, and the raised eyebrow in relation to the cowl in the front.
Okay.
We did remove the appearance of the shear wall at least, so what we plan to do, if we do need shear, we'll do a wall inside some spandrel glass.
Okay.
So in addition to some added spandrel glass at the top of the commercial unit so we could pull that eyebrow up, we're going to do spandrel glass in front of that panel so you won't notice necessarily that there's another material there.
potentially be a strong wall or something like that, depending on how the structural comes, or, you know, a moment frame. Prefer to move away from a moment frame just for cost, but one way or the other, it will be glassy glass all the way across that.
Okay, so it looks to me that you've addressed all of our comments from last time, except for number 3, study ways to break up the blockiness and sense of mass at the East Coda Street facade, break up the roof line that becomes the cowl, study the possibility of pushing the upper residential portion back away from East Coda to provide greater relief at the street elevations.
We think we did that by the fact that we kind of disengaged this element that was kind of making it be kind of one continuous line. And the way we read that was that that was kind of an issue with people here, that it was kind of making it a little bit too homogeneous or whatever on that facade. So that happened by breaking this line and moving this eyebrow out of plane with this one. As far as moving it back off of the park side, as we talked about last time, we can look through the plans, but I mean, the concept that was started at the very beginning of this project was to allow these units to have light on both sides. And so if you want to look at the floor plan, you know, we can't really move this back away from the park because of the exiting the way we've got it set up. And that was started from the very beginning of the project, and that is to, in order to have operable windows on this side, you have to be 10 feet away from a exit way, and you have to be 10 feet away from the property line.
No, that was understood. The comment was to move it away from Coda Street. So we were talking about this.
Yeah.
Right, and yes, we understand that originally that was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit. It's been changed to downsized to a 1-bedroom, 1-bath with that full wraparound deck on the front that we've maintained since the previous design. So.
Okay. All right. Question. Public comment. Is anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this project? Seeing none, we'll go to comments from the board or questions from the board. Howard.
So I'm looking on sheet A201, an elevation, north elevation. This appears to be the street elevation.
Yes.
And I'm seeing at the top sort of an open railing. Is that kind of for the service people up on the roof so they don't fall through? So the gap is 12 inches?
Yes. Yes, that's a more standard pipe rail type with a paint finish. But yes, you're right. There is a 5-foot roughly bridge that they would need to traverse to get to the main roof.
And that's way back out of plane with the front of the building. I mean, that's way back at the back of the project.
And again, so 8 is the green screen planted wall. That's another thing.
Correct. So that's the thing that we've always talked about.
This one here.
Right. So that's the full hedge green screen, which would match the green screen wall that separates us from the mattress.
Essentially, too, that looks like the welded wire
It
mesh.
looks like the same grid, very
Pretty
close
much.
to it. The modular
But it's
is slightly
planted with
different,
vines.
but it's a match to this.
And so then 6 is this perforated metal panel with the holes.
Correct.
Varied size and so forth.
Correct.
And painted color to be
Determined.
determined.
It'll be a dark, warm gray color, non-reflective. It'll be a matte finish.
Okay. And then 3 is board-formed concrete, again gray.
Right.
Natural.
And then you have a series of panels. Can I see this? Where did I see these things here? And this, one of these elevations here. Sure. Yeah. I'm looking at
You want to put that one in
multicolored, and
front
that's
of the
what you were showing
camera?
there.
Correct.
So these are all in one plane. They're just a series of bands, really.
Correct.
Randomly
Correct.
made up bands.
And if you notice, we did do the main stair wall that splits the stair from the units. It's even more easily seen in one of the perspectives, which is here. We did that as well. We felt that that was another technique to lose some of the monochromatic feel of that front facade. So this
Could you point out where that is again?
Sure.
In between.
That's this wall here. So that's the same material.
That would be the inside of the stair?
It's both sides of that wall. So
Both
as you're
sides.
in the stair going up and down, and on the egress balconies for the units, you would see
This
that.
is this plane right here.
Right, all the way to the
Plane that's
ground.
on the, it's the wall that's the east wall of the stair. Would have that same material. And in between here too.
Yes.
Where the- yeah.
So that
Yeah, so you
This
can
wall.
see it.
that
this
is,
one.
shows up as these
Inside.
recesses
This one. So it's
here
the
and on
inside
that
of
wall.
the stairs.
Correct.
And the outside is what? This one.
That's a stucco facade right now, yeah. Just a different,
But different,
accented
different color.
Accented color, yeah, for that front piece.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Amy, questions?
So is the eyebrow also stucco?
Plaster.
Just a darker gray?
Yes.
And then for the perforated metal, are you thinking, because based on some of the examples you showed, you think you're going to do like a custom pattern or just do
Just
a
be
really
cut.
simple gradient or?
We think there's a couple ways to think about it. Right now, we think that the lower panels will be probably off the shelf, perforated with a larger hole, even something like this. And then the upper deck panels could be a different perforation, much fewer and smaller holes than this. And then we could just do a custom pattern that would bridge the two, so it would appear as if it's all custom. That's one thought.
Kevin?
Do you happen to bring the previous version with you?
The renderings?
The renders.
I did bring 2 of them. How old?
Just the previous version that you presented.
We have last week's.
I've got these here. That would be that one. That would be that one.
Okay, so the changes, you ran through some of the changes, a lot of material changes, some refinement in materials. But massing changes are really restricted to the height of this and then this line.
Correct. And the eyebrow that's associated with the...
and lowering the stair tower.
Right, and the stair tower, right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Scott?
This is a green wall you're proposing?
Correct.
Okay. And that's a separate structure aside from the building next door?
Correct. We'll have our CMU wall most likely there, and we'll attach a green screen to it. We've got vine pockets on the planting plan and everything.
Okay. So where does the face of that building sit in respect to that?
It's just on the other side.
So is it really just...
Yeah, so you can see our wall. We're bringing it out to the face of that building.
Okay. And you'll have like an expansion joint between them, or how will you...
We leave a small gap between the two. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably end up being flashed between the two buildings, so you don't have water going down between the...
Yeah, okay. And would you be opposed to a solid rail up here as opposed to the metal guardrail?
Solid?
You're talking about this, the railing for the
Yeah, the
service?
railing for the...
Service railing?
Service railing.
That would be a condition of approval. No problem with that at all. Make it whatever you want. We're just trying to make it inexpensive and lightweight so it kind of goes away because
Yeah.
it's not required to have 4 inches on center.
Yeah,
So-
no, I understand, yeah. Okay. That was it, thanks.
You want to go into comments?
Sure. A lot of nice subtleties and improvements the last time we saw it. Really think that the tile pattern helps. Needed that other level of materiality and interest and like some of the asymmetries of the pattern. I think it's a big improvement to the project. And I'm on board with the water jet cut. Now that I see it, I think it's appropriate. I think it'll be really nice and add a lot of interest. Obviously, the pattern's important, but it looks like you're headed in the right direction there. I think the change to the parapet height's a good one. It was a good suggestion, I think, by Kevin. I'm concerned, I guess, I find the horizontal rail, maybe it's just me, the board members feel more elegant. I know the welded wire mesh is a thing and people do it all the time. my personal preference. I think the horizontals are nice on the project. I'm a little concerned about these railings here being too tall. I mean, it looks like they're hanging down below the finished floor level.
Correct. So wherever we have the perforated, we've held it down below. So it's
and
a
I think
matching situation.
it doesn't. I think it's fine there. It's kind of interesting and nice. Here they feel just chunky, and I wonder if there's a way to minimize those. I think it was a good decision to raise the canopy. I think that alleviated some of those concerns. For me, this looks very utilitarian, and I think just a solid rail would be easier on the eyes.
Where's that?
Oh, the service railing.
Yeah.
And then on the whole,
What's your comment about this?
well, I thought these guys they look chunky. I think, particularly with these align, I think it is counter to the hierarchy of these being the dominant shape. And maybe if that railing was lower or not aligned and not so chunky, I think this would stand out as the predominant shape more. I'm picking at little things here. I think the project's looking pretty good. I think that's. Oh, I was going to get to the colors. I mean, you keep saying warm gray. This looks like a cool gray to my eye, and maybe I haven't seen the color chip yet that shows that it's a warm gray. It strikes me as a very gray project. I know there's green and other things happening, but it looks very monochromatic gray. And I think that maybe this wasn't the right answer, but some kind of warmer elements, and maybe when we see the paint colors, that'll change. But on the surface, it's very monochromatic, 50 shades of gray. So maybe there's a way to warm that up, no pun intended. But I think I'm ready to give design approval today.
Okay. Kevin.
And I agree. I think there's improvement there, and I appreciate the effort that you guys have gone to modulate the form and try and break it down. The materially, I preferred the little warmer wood tones that you had going here, whether or not it's real wood. There's plenty of porcelain out there that's a lighter color. I'm still, I do wish there was a little bit more modulation in the street elevation, particularly what I was responding to is the overall length of the cowl form as it continued. I mean, it's almost, how wide is that? Do we know?
It's 59-ish, less than that, 55.
All right, so it's a long way over there. Is there a location that makes sense to stop that or create some difference there?
Well, I mean, it is the roof form, and it does function as the roof form and the eyebrow for the sides that we were asked to return with. We personally like the integration of the stair into that piece, and rather than having the stair as its own separate tall tower. And so that's
right. Well, I'm not suggesting that you create a separate tall tower. I'm just suggesting that maybe there's a way to break that long plane just in, horizontal plane, not a vertical, just a little notch of some sort, some difference, so that when viewed in perspective, it does create that setback and help break down that long, continuous form. And I think, just to clarify for me, is this perforated, or is this bar stock? This is
the woven mesh.
So it is that, okay.
And this is, that's the bar, the
Welded wire mesh.
Yep.
Okay. I personally think it would be a little more timeless if this was a horizontal material like a bar stock, a flat stock of some sort, or cable or something like that. I worry that the mesh is going to be dated not too long. So
Hey, we can do that. It's a detail. We can
Yeah.
certainly look at that.
Yeah.
We're basically we want to have two materials. So if we do that, then we lose all of that. But then you're going to have it as a
Sure.
green screen.
Then there's a third.
So you've got a third again.
Right.
So that's what we're
I understand.
That was really going on what was said last time, is try to
I
really
understand.
limit it. So
I understand.
I personally, there's plenty of buildings, old buildings that have that that welded wire. I don't think that's necessarily a 2016 thing.
Okay. Those are my comments.
All right, thanks. Amy?
Yeah, I agree. I think overall the changes have definitely improved the project, especially at the corner where the commercial portion is now higher than the rest, so it sort of breaks that line. I think that is successful. I think in terms of materials, I hear what you're saying with the three materials, but just based on this rendering, I kind of agree too that I could support either one, but I do think that if you did the bar stock, it does look really elegant with the perforated panel at the end. And then in terms of the perforated panels, the way that you described it, I would just recommend studying maybe where this line it starts. If this is more open, just to make sure you had enough space to do like a custom panel or something to get the gradient to actually go up to like a more closed panel. So that would be the only thing I would say, is just to actually study where that is. And then in terms of materials, I really like these materials in person. They don't read the same way in the rendering. You kind of get more stripes in this rendering. This I was actually really liking. Just maybe the rendering just needs to be toned down, and you use either fewer of the dark, fewer of the light, so they don't look like stripes, and it's sort of you can go from one to the other. So maybe it's somewhere in between where you were.
How about the taupe color, Amy? How do you feel about that as opposed to the white?
This versus the white?
Mm-hmm.
I like the color in here. These two actually look even a little bit different, because this one looks a little bit darker than this one. Seems to have a little bit more blue. I think you could do something other than white, but this maybe looks too cool. It's maybe closer to in between those.
Okay. Thanks. Howard?
I agree that the project is coming along much improved. I agree with some of the comments that have been made, in particular about the pipe rail on the top. I think that's kind of it's out of character with the other elements that you have in the building, such as the meshes and the perforated screen walls and so forth. I just came back from vacation to Northern California, and where there's a lot of rock and ice and snow and places like that. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. This seems like a project from a color standpoint, to belong to a northern city, as opposed to Santa Barbara, which is our southern city. The colors themselves are elegant. They're very sophisticated, very nice colors. But they seem to be, I guess, in the renderings. I kind of agree with the comment that Amy made that the material samples seem one thing and the renderings seem a little colder. So I don't know exactly how this is going to play out in real life. But if it was possible for you to, again, warm up the colors so that this building would look like it derived from a southern city, a southern clime, as opposed to the northern climes somewhere else. That's just a comment. I think the mesh, the 2x2 is a little busy. 4x4 is like minimal. A lot of it hinges on the gauge of the wire, and maybe 3x3 or something in between might not look quite so intense. But I also think that the horizontal railings mixed with the perforated panels at the end, kind of as an accent, would work over the length of the building. So nothing much more to add other than maybe the colors. I really like the idea of the screen that has the openings, graded opening sizes. That's a very interesting thing. I've seen that. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? If we were to do the horizontal bar stock, would people have a problem if we had with the green screen being basically the welded wire in the places where it's going to have vines on it?
No.
Okay, great. It's
going to go away.
Yeah, that's what I
Be
agree.
hidden by aloe, climbing aloe. I think it's going to kind of disappear as a material. More green and more plant material.
All right. I'm still struggling with the project, particularly since I felt like one of the comments was partially addressed, and the comment about the cowl, which had to do with the comment about the cowl and the roof line, which is defining the upper block of the building, and then this sense also of pushing towards the street, which I've been commenting on it every time. I still feel like it could be eased back away from Dakota Street in a little bit more significant way. And I agree with the other comments about the direction Scott was going. I think that this material, one of the comments you made last time was to reduce the amount of metal and different types. And what you came back with, instead of a material that looks like wood, is more metal, or a material that's designed to look like metal in metal colors and metal rust colors. So I feel like that's going the opposite direction of what we were asking for last time, whereas this, as at least it appears, is something that looks more like wood tones, even if it's not actually wood, it appears that way. And then also the grays of the paint colors, I think it's going further away from something that looks that eases it into the context of Santa Barbara and particularly the buildings that are right adjacent to it. Whereas I felt like the white on these plaster masses picked up nicely what's the building that's adjacent and was very appropriate for the building. What was bothering me was the big darker gray masses, and now we have more darker gray and off gray. So I feel like it's, in that sense, it's moving away from the direction that I thought we gave last time. But the other moves that you've made with varying the heights, I think really has helped the project a lot. And it is still moving in the right direction. And I do like this kind of pattern that screens the stair tower. I think that's a huge improvement instead of just the solid mesh. And I also like the other comments that Scott made about looking for other places where instead of just the strong horizontal conjunction of masses, that you have some more offsets going on. I think that does help and would help if there was a little bit more of that as well. So those would be my comments. Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to add one more comment before the motion. This east elevation study detail, siding detail, as I mentioned, I like the colors. I think they're probably, I don't know whether they're really warm or not, but I think this random placement of these bands on this is very busy. And when seen on the inside of the stair walls, and also in the back of these balconies over, it looks artificially busy. And I'm wondering if, I don't know about whether you can, choose a color for each level, or somehow maybe making a wainscot and then something else. But I think this random thing, board end to end, and doesn't seem in keeping with the discipline that you have set up in the other parts of the building. So it's a very well organized from a visual standpoint. So that's a little artificial, it seems to me, cosmetic.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
This is comments
Give it
only,
a shot.
right?
No, they're looking for PDA. They're looking for PDA.
I'll make a motion for project design approval with the following comments to come back for either in progress or final working drawings. The board appreciates the changes made by the applicant and has responded to most all of our comments. Start with the easy stuff. Revise the service railing to either a solid rail or something visually less distracting. Study the changing the alignment of the third floor balcony on Coda Street so that it's not coincident with the larger adjacent mass. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay. I'm sympathetic to Howard's comment about the tile to some degree. I don't know how others feel.
I agree, but I think it just needs to be studied further.
Yeah.
So that's not like stripes.
I think it's most problematic right in the center on Coda Street, where it's a lot of busyness where I don't think you need it necessarily. But this, I think, is more attractive on this side.
A lot of it right there.
Oh, that's right there, too.
All the way up.
Oh, I didn't even
Here.
see that.
It's all that.
Oh, that is quite a bit.
Oh, actually, from base all the way up.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a valid comment then. Study simplifying the tile design.
Simplifying what?
The tile design. Tile pattern, rather.
Colors.
Color and pattern. And then how do others feel about this notion of taking a notch? I know it destroys this nice clean line, but that nice clean line makes the building, to my eye, feel maybe a bit bigger than it needs to feel. Just the length of this roof line along Coda Street. I mean,
That was one of our comments last time.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. So I still feel it's a very valid comment. And I'm not saying take a little notch out of it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that break it up, and there's different ways that it could be done.
Yeah. I mean, it destroys the idea of this cowl, which I think is an interesting one, but I think it might be beneficial to the project as a whole.
So what's the comment? Oh, sorry.
We're
Could
trying
it
to
be
figure
a
it out.
punched? Could it be a punched hole in that location?
That might help.
That's
That might help, for
just
sure.
an entry court for one of the units.
Yeah.
It could be open air.
And this kind of naturally reads as this kind of element, and if the roof responded to that in some way, it might break up the feel of the project. It may be something subtle that draws your eye a little bit and just tweaks it. I don't think it has to completely alter it, but that's just my take on it. How do others feel?
Can you just point to the area that you're saying?
it's-
take
Well,
a foot of-
in here, maybe there's, as you mentioned, a hole, maybe steps back just a tad. I don't know.
In the roof, you mean?
In the roof plane,
The
yeah.
cowl line, it's the cowl line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Equivalent to a comma rather than a paragraph break. You know what I mean?
Semicolon.
Comma.
Semicolon.
Pause.
Do we have general agreement on that? There's three of us here that I think feel that way.
I think you could state it very generally to give the architect latitude in working up a solution that, it could be carrying forward the comment from last time to study ways of breaking up the cowl line to reduce the apparent mass at the Coda Street elevation.
I think it's worth it. I think this is a four-story building. You don't see too many of them in Santa Barbara. And we just have to be sensitive to the mass relative scale. So yes, let's include that as a comment. The previous comment will just carry forward.
Do you have any thoughts about the color spectrum being warmer, cooler?
I think, do we have a general consensus that the color spectrum is on the cool side and warming it up might enhance the project?
I think we should be clear about what we mean by warm.
Warm.
Because this was presented as warm grays, but to me, that's cooling down the building.
Yeah. I thought it was a strong project with, kind of a Santa Barbara white, the way it was.
I did too. That's the way I feel.
And maybe more contextual in that regard. So I would push towards that. Do others feel the same? Okay.
You mean just for that?
Just for these,
Just for those two front pieces?
or potentially these pieces as well.
My eye is a little off-put by the renderings as opposed to the materials. I see the material. I see those materials, but I think the renderings are they're a little cold.
Yeah. So we can say several members on the board felt the project color scheme was a little gray on the cold side. Applicant should study that. We haven't actually seen paint chips or anything yet, so I mean that's coming down the road.
Paint chips,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think there was a strong preference from the board that a horizontal balcony rail, bar stock perhaps, was a more elegant solution. And the board finds the wire mesh acceptable for the green screens. Someone can second and add to that motion.
Okay, seconded by Amy.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So there would also be, there's revised conditions of approval. The rest of the document you had already included in the PDA, but there's just one added item with this revised PDA, and it's residential storage area shall not be divided or assigned to individual units and shall be maintained as communal space for use by all residential tenants. So that document needs to be included in the motion. And
Okay.
also the CEQA 15183 needs to be included.
All right. Is that okay with the maker and the seconder?
Yeah, the storage is all internal. Okay, not a problem. So we need to read something off here?
Sequel?
Does he need to read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think it's the last page for it, yeah.
Okay. CEQA Section 15183, Exemption Determination. As the decision maker for the project, here we go. The ABR finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA Guidelines Section 15183 based on the city staff analysis and CEQA's certificate of determination on file for the project. Okay. We set with our motion?
Yes, we are. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One opposed. And that's just because, I've been harping on it since day 2, and that is, I feel like it could be pushed back further at the top, at the upper floor, and wasn't really addressed. So, but we have indefinite continuance.
Right.
See you guys next time.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Good
For all
job,
your hard
guys.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The other plan?
Thank you, everybody.
Sometime.
Yeah, good job, guys. Okay. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to show here. Okay. We are on to item number 4. 1116 San Pasqual Street. Welcome.
Thank you.
You can come over here, Howard, if you want to be a little closer.
You
print any landscape plans, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I'll include the landscape plan concept. It'll sit at the bottom, because we'll talk about that last.
Okay, so we'll just reiterate, this is a proposal for a new residential addition using the AUD program. The proposal includes the demolition of an existing detached 720 square foot garage and a 170 square foot shed and construction of a new 2,444 square foot two-story duplex. An existing 675 square foot single-family dwelling on site will remain unchanged. The residential unit mix will include one two-bedroom unit, existing dwelling, one five-bedroom unit on the first floor and second floors, and one one-bedroom unit on the second floor of the new duplex, with an average unit size of 1,039 square feet. The proposed density on the 6,880 square foot parcel is 21 units per acre, on a parcel with a general plan land use designation of medium-high density, 15 to 27 units per acre. And I'll skip the rest.
As a correction, we've reduced the density
Okay.
on the bedrooms. It's gone from a 5-bedroom in the back to a 3-bedroom.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
So I'll get to that as I go through the project.
Are you on?
Yeah, there we go. All right. Okay. There we go. Starting off here, I'm not going to go
I'm sorry,
through.
names for the record, please.
Keith Nolan on design.
And Sam Maphis, landscape architect.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm not going to go through the neighborhood photos as we went through that at the last meeting here. Just as a quick location, the address is 1116 San Pasquale right here. Is location, you've got Carrillo, San Andres, Anapamu, and then San Pasquale, and it's in the middle of the block right there.
Okay.
Okay. Project is an AUD. It's an R3, medium high density, 6,880 square foot lot. Base density is 2 units, and we're actually proposing 3. Last time we were at 1,039 square feet. Average unit size, we're now at 779 square feet. So we've reduced it actually substantially as far as the average. Okay.
Okay.
One more thing of note on the cover sheet right here. We did have 3 parking spaces proposed last time. We do have the 3 required covered parking spaces as was requested, plus we've added 2 more. All right, very quickly, it's kind of the street elevation right here. Subject property itself on the right side and the left side. And same thing from the aerial right here, the right side and the left side, and then subject property. Very quickly on the demo plan itself, the front house is to remain. There is a garage in the back, shown in this photograph right here, to be removed, as well as a shed in the back. The landscape features that are to be removed or to remain, Sam will talk about in a couple minutes here. All right, you'll have to excuse my very rough site plan right here. Sam has a much better version. In a couple of minutes, he'll go over that, but we'll just use this as a starting point. Some of the basic features on this right here. The existing house, we'll call this Unit A. Driveway right down here. We're actually reducing this to actually 12 feet, including a walkway itself, providing 1 parking space right here, with actually moving the trash, breaking the trash enclosures up, so we have individual trash behind the unit right here, bike storage right here, bike storage here, trash enclosure here, trash here, and then bike storage inside this unit also. And then 3 one-car garages, and then a 5th parking space back in there.
Okay.
And this is the existing unit. The only thing that's going to change here is that the water heater will move probably maybe inside, either up in the attic or off the closet or something like that. We'll figure that out later. It will move from there. All right, as a quick reference, on the site plan, the first floor plan itself, the new unit, access to unit B right here, coming in through here, garage to unit B, unit A, which is up front right here, unit C garage, and then unit C right here. And whereas we had 2 bedrooms down below before, we've substantially reduced that, and now we have direct access to a private yard, and Sam will go over that in a couple of minutes. And then access to upstairs, slipping over to here, to the second floor plan. We have 2 bedrooms upstairs. And then on unit B, coming in upstairs right here, kitchen, dining, living room, and then 2 small bedrooms here. Keep in mind, this is actually a very, very small unit itself, even though it is 2 bedrooms. And this particular unit, we did have the only way we were actually able to get the private outdoor space on this was actually provide a roof deck, and it's actually very, very ample. But we do have a private access right from the front door coming up to the roof right here. Then moving to the elevations, the driveway elevation itself. As you can see right here, 3 garages right here. Access to the unit B on this side, unit A coming in through here. A couple of things of note. On this side right here, basically 8-foot plates, 8-foot plates, and then the back portion right here, I've got 10-foot and then 8-foot. And then the side that faces probably more the street would be this, the south elevation right here. This is the opposite. And this would be the north or the very back side.
What's going? You have a rather large cantilever over that unit there.
This is correct.
Okay.
That would be this piece right here.
And then likewise here, that's a big cantilever.
And over the parking.
Okay.
So this is the cantilever. This would be the cantilever piece right here. And this is in line. This is in line. Yes. And then this would be the cantilever piece right here. I have one more page that'll explain that.
Okay. Go for it.
Go for it? Okay. Okay. There we go. So hopefully that explains. Here's the cantilever over the garage, and then this is the other piece right here. And this would be the site, kind of a site elevation here, showing the context of the front house and the back house itself.
Is this an open balcony?
It would be open, yes, and it would also be the entrance to this particular unit.
So this
And that
would
would
go
be-
in here.
That would be a private door. It would be exterior private door just to this unit.
Okay, anything else
Okay.
you want to add to your presentation?
Yes.
Let's
I'd like to
keep
turn it
playing,
over.
yeah.
I'd like to turn it over to Sam.
Switch real quick. I'm going to scoot over. That's fine, Keith.
So,
In terms of the site plan, again, as Keith mentioned, we've got auto circulation, which will be a different material. It will be a permeable paver. We'll have a different and unique paver that constitutes a pedestrian path to the open space in the front. We will have fencing around this at probably a 5-foot height to create a private space from the street. We have some open landscape area in the street towards San Pasquale that I'm thinking we would plant additional trees, potentially fruit trees, citrus trees of some kind, to kind of create its own ambiance and feel, something edible and potentially a function. We're going to be planting low shrubs, probably something like Rhaphielopus umbularia that gets up about 3.5 feet here and along this side. Trying to create some depth and some layers to this little cottage. I also want to plant a nice shade tree of some kind. A jacaranda is a thought or a choice to create some shade on this hot south side next to paving. Again, the paving is close, but we do have a planter all along the south side that creates a landscape layered buffer and an aesthetic for that unit on the south side. I'm trying to create some buffering and some layering of planting along the south side property line. There'll be a fence there. There's kind of a mismatch of fence types, but that will be maintained and repaired. But the tree types could be a Hymenosperum, a Tabebuia, Stenocarpus, all medium-sized trees, but shade and color and flower and interest along this shade side, so this would break up the paving. There's an existing Eugenia hedge all along this north side that's very dense and thick, and that will remain. This is about 16 feet high, so it actually does a good job of blocking and shading or buffering this two-story building next to us. The existing lemon tree, all this will stay. The existing materials will all stay. The one key piece is a giant black acacia that is in this corner, and I brought a few pictures just to kind of give you an orientation to how nice that feature is in the back corner. And it's about a 3-foot base on it, as you see the base trunk. So this will create a nice outdoor space that will be useful with some sliding doors, as Keith mentioned, off of this landing down to a private space that'll be a very nice yard. The rest of it is low water-wise type planting like Eulembergia, deergrass, and again, callistemon, some flowering, tough plant material. We'll put some accent pieces to kind of go up in silhouette against some of the forms of the architecture. And back on this side, because you're looking into a neighbor, I thought I'd create another tree that might match these that break up looking directly at the neighbor and vice versa to this two-story mass. So I think that's a quick presentation. Again, that's existing conditions of that Eugenia along this side. As Keith mentioned, it's pretty open. That's a little bit of what the fencing looks like going along this side that I'd like to make more consistent and certainly add some height and some green and some depth to, which is what we're showing in the planting. There's only one little tree that we'll be transplanting and removing. It's only a small little Phoenix robellini, pygmy date palm. Nothing else will be removed on site except this one might be transplanted or it might be removed because it's a sticky, very unsafe plant to walk by. So I want to maybe move that out of the site. So that's our presentation for the site. Any questions?
Thank you. So we'll open it up to public comment. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. And we'll have questions of the applicants. When we start down at your end, Amy, questions for the applicant?
Yeah, the main question is, if you can go to the A2.3, what made you change the style completely? Because last time, I think the new structure was sort of kind of married to the front house. You can leave it on this one. So if you just talk about that.
Well, I'll tell you, the site constraints pretty much dictated that I was pretty much maxed out the way that it was. And, you know, the program, I substantially reduced the program.
A little closer to your mouth there.
I substantially reduced the program, and the architecture it dictated that I go in a different direction.
Okay.
It wasn't a comment that it wasn't as interesting as it could be.
Well, that's true. That's true.
The last
That's true
presentation.
too.
Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure why the drastic change. So. Okay.
Anything else?
No, that was my main question.
Kevin, questions?
Yeah, so the previous was it a 5-bedroom house essentially on the back?
It was 5-bedroom, yes.
Right. So they've changed their mind. They're not going to.
We basically had told them that we had to completely change the program, and it's basically for a different
For rent
use
now.
at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about your picking up on the formal discussion, this kind of marriage of forms between you've got some boxy stuff, and then you've got some things that are relating towards the existing house. You know, for instance, this piece and these pieces. And I can't really tell what's going on the roof back here. Is that flat or is that sloped?
Let's kind of start with the front, maybe itself, okay, and then kind of as you sort of come down the driveway, you know, I kind of felt that, you know, I really wanted to have some kind of a, you know, a sense of, okay, the front house is going to be what it is, you know, at this point, and I really wanted to use, you know, the entry of the second unit, or I'll call it Unit B right here, as a departure point, okay, or as a transitional point itself. And so the forms itself and the materials sort of played off of this and kind of allowed me to sort of go off in a different direction. Okay. And so, and then from there, you know, while the roof form itself, and then basically I'll call it the skirt on the front house, okay, and then I sort of deformed that, and the roof line itself sort of played off of that, but then I, you know, came across, you know, that departed from that. This right here, this is where the basically the roof deck was. Okay, so that pretty much dictated that it's going to be a flat roof right there, and that's where the departure point ended. From there, I mean, I went back to this roof form, but then I went back to the entry again here, and so I sort of almost created a rhythm back and forth.
Okay.
Okay.
Materials-wise, are we plaster for the most
For
part?
the most
with
part,
some-
plaster. You know, up in here, you know, I would kind of like to play off, once again, maybe off of the skirting right here, so maybe it would be more like a hardy panel, hardy
some sort of
trim,
siding.
some sort of siding, something like that. Okay.
Then the windows.
Probably a metal windows, and probably like a dark bronze.
Okay.
Okay.
How far off the property line is this face?
This right here?
Yeah.
That would be probably about, guessing.
I don't think I show that dashed line here.
Okay, it's about a 4-foot cantilever, so it's got to be at least 10 feet.
Okay. All right. Those are my
I
questions.
mean, I can better answer it next time. Yeah.
Okay. Howard, question to the applicant.
Is this
This is a roof deck up here, right?
That's correct, yes.
Uncovered.
Uncovered.
And you access it from an open stair in the back?
It is an open stair in the back, yes.
And this is an open stair into this unit? Or
It
you
is,
go-
it
you go-
is an open stair.
So
yes.
you go into a door here, into an interior?
It is an open stair.
It's open, okay. And
Although there is a
roof there?
There is a roof over
part of it.
over the entry.
covered but open.
It's covered but open. If we go back to the elevation for just a second, this is the entry element right here.
What is this enclosing here?
This is the
The
stair.
stair.
This is the stairwell, basically on the first floor
So that's a stair inside.
inside.
So you go in a door and you're inside. When do you come out again?
And you will come out right here
Through the floor?
through the floor,
Okay, I see.
and then you'll continue on up, and then on up
I see.
the backside.
Okay. I don't, just about the garage doors, what are we looking at there? Looking at wood? What is that? Are they overhead sectional doors?
It would be sectional, probably metal and glass. That's all.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions. Is there a privacy concern for the neighbors from your new roof deck? If so, how did you address that?
Well, the roof deck itself, it's kind of hard to show from here. I don't know if we can
I guess
show
that's
from the, maybe on the,
So it's kind of in that front corner there.
it's pretty much in the middle of the, more toward the middle of the site. I mean, it's, and not only that, but if you look at the closest neighbor, they're way over here. This is the driveway.
What is that, a single-family residence or an apartment building?
Big apartment building.
It's an apartment building, and
You can see it in the photo.
there's a, how high is this hedge here?
That's 16 feet. This section is 16 feet, probably 15, and then this drops down to about 8 or 9. And so there's kind of a stair stepping of the same plant material. You have a picture of it. So if you look at that, that gives you a perspective, Scott, of the little house. And then this is the building that sits here right next to it, north. See how long and big that horizontal roof is. And then that's the hedge that's the low hedge. And then behind the house, it steps up to about 5 feet, 6 feet higher.
And then so from a distance, obviously, you'd be looking into your neighbor's yard to some extent.
Oh, from a distance, but that's kind of the idea of these trees as well as some of this greenery. But then there's a large avocado in this yard, and there's existing, let's see if I can find a picture down that side real quick. So this little shed piece is kind of an extension right to the property line, this little notch and block piece. Behind that, you'll see kind of a massing of planting that's all right here. I didn't color it in, but that massing plus our massing is kind of a buffer and barrier, if you will. It's existing, and we played off of that and added to it for more privacy, for not looking up and looking down. So we tried to kind of incorporate some privacy in this main area because we have it here already, so it's almost like emulating these two centerpieces.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was my only question. Moving on, Susan, was there a public comment that we missed?
Yes, Mr. Chair. If
Okay.
you could open it up again, that would be great.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
we'll go ahead and open up public comment.
Before we do that,
Okay.
just one following question.
Yeah.
Susan, is planning staff going to be looking at these hedges that are on the property line? Is planning staff going to be looking at these hedges that are on the property line? Are they on this property or are they on?
You know, it's funny, Kevin, because they start on our property line and then they meander back to the other side of the fence, and then they stay on that side of the fence. So this property kind of contains the bigger, taller block of Eugenia, and then it starts to waver and get part on our side, part on the other.
Wasn't this, Keith, wasn't that going to get cut back or something? To. Oh. Okay. Well, so what's the question?
Well, I mean, the question was, are the hedges going to remain at their current height? And it sounds like, for the most part, yes.
If they're over height for ordinance, then they're going to have to be cut.
Well,
That'll be a plan check correction.
The majority of the
building.
hedges are on the other properties.
Well, that's not within our purview to tell, it would have to be a complaint that somebody would submit, and then it would go to enforcement.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll end questions and reopen public comment. Would you guys make room for Sheila Lodge to come up and show?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed it when it came around the first time. I was here for the first hearing on this project, and so I'm familiar with what was presented before. And as I recall, one of you made a comment about the design not being very Santa Barbara. And what has come back has got to be as far away from Santa Barbara, or at least as I understand it, as it can be. The previous design at least bore some relation to the little cottage in the front, sort of craftsman-y, and it seemed far more appropriate than this. The site plan seems quite a bit better now. And I'm not clear on how many bedrooms are there in Unit C?
3.
There are 3 now? Okay. So that part seems more appropriate, but I am concerned about the direction the design is taking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to comments from the board. We'll start with you, Amy.
So,
Go back to the elevations here.
yeah, if you can go to 2.3,
Okay.
just because it shows the relationship to the front of the front house.
Yep.
I definitely appreciate you reducing the number of bedrooms, because the 5 bedrooms was definitely a concern. And also for taking some attention to the landscape in the site plan. I think that at least opening up some ground floor space for the larger unit is successful, and the amount of planting and attention that you've put into that is good. Moving in the right direction. I do still think, in looking just at this elevation and just the space between the front house and the new structure, just it still seems really tight, and I understand with your site plan constraints, it probably lends itself to like a certain architecture, or certain layouts. I definitely can understand that, but I do think that the previous attempt to sort of marry the site together was more successful architecturally, and because this really is like you have the smaller cottage in the front, and I'm definitely in support of a structure in the back. And I think we all supported like a 2-story structure, but I think that it's still a bit too dense for the space, and just the proximity to that front house, and just I think it needs sort of another review, or just to see if you can now make it sort of read as one lot.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, comments?
Well, to start off, I do really appreciate you taking a swing at it and putting some effort into it to really study the project and make it better. I appreciate you reducing the mass and the apparent bulk of the project. I am struggling a little bit with, as Amy commented, the relationship between the existing house and the proposed. I think there's ways that you could soften this form and integrate them a little bit more closely. And maybe there's a way to open up this area as well. Maybe the stair doesn't have to be fully enclosed. Maybe there's just a little awning that comes out over the top of it, and that would help break down that mass. I think as far as the use of the site, my personal feeling is that this is within the AUD overlay. It's within biking, walking distance to downtown. That's why the AUD ordinance was created. It's to encourage more density in certain locations. We just have to be careful how it's done. So I would encourage you to restudy the form of your building and the exterior appearance of it, and try and marry it a little bit more closely with what's there now.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Howard, comments?
I agree with those comments. For me, it's the size, bulk, and scale of the 2-story building. I think is appropriate. I think the boxiness of the style, this architectural style issue, does not serve to keep the scale of the building in proportion to this building. And so I think that we're all saying the same thing in different words, is basically to get the style of the building in the back to be more compatible with the existing building in the front. And I think there are many ways to do that. I think one way is to maybe get this stair, opened up and with a little awning or something over it for rain. But maybe some of these doors are kind of very contemporary. I think the roof deck, I would ask that you reconsider the roof deck, because once you go up there, then you have railings, and then you have waterproofing issues, and then you have maybe you have to cover it, and if you cover it, then that's another story and another element. So I don't know if you are doing that in order to satisfy private outdoor living space. Would be better if you could do that in the same level as the unit or below. So those are my comments.
Thanks, Howard. I'll just add a few more. I think I generally agree with the comments so far. I will say that you did really listen, and the project has shrunk. It feels more in keeping with the neighborhood. I mean, that's a big deal that you should be commended for. And the 5-bedroom thing, I think, was just a non-starter. I think you read the board correctly and shrunk it. So good job there. Yeah, my favorite part of the project is that little kind of half-open stair tower. I think it really joins well. And then from that point forward, I think there's some issues that need to be resolved. One is that just the roof deck, and maybe it's a combination of combining the rail. This square element here just feels out of scale with that. I mean, I think if the hierarchy was, more kind of the traditional, and then some smaller pieces that were more modern, that'd be more tolerable. But I think it just quickly, it's not so much a style as it is just a scale of the elements. This box feels much larger and predominates over kind of the other box here. And so maybe there's an open rail, maybe the flat roof or the sloped roof comes in front of that, and the roof deck's buried in the sloped roof and kind of shrinks it that way. And then just off the top of my head, this cantilever feels aggressive. There's a lot of cantilevering happening in the project. And I know that you're maximizing your second floor, and to do that, you've got to keep your parking. Are you over-parked now? Okay. Well, I mean, that's a good thing for the neighborhood. It's
by 2.
Okay. I don't want to reduce your over-parking the project, because I think it probably needs it for the neighborhood.
Well, if I was to, the only way that we can reduce this right here is to lose a parking space. So that's going to be the give and take.
Well, I mean, you could reduce the square footage on the inside and reduce it that way as well. No, I understand.
700 and some square foot average.
That's a 2-bedroom unit for 700 square feet?
Yeah.
That's a small
That's a 3-bedroom.
Well, how many square feet is your 3-bedroom?
1,000. It's 1,000, but I have a 2-bedroom with 600 and some square feet.
That doesn't get any smaller than that for a 2-bedroom.
Pretty small.
Yeah. Well, I would look at ways for treating that architecturally. And maybe there's some diagonal struts or something. It looks a little floaty out there over the parking stall. So summing up, I agree with others that the style needs to be more cohesive throughout the project. I'm not necessarily opposed to kind of a more eclectic take that you have, but the way it is now, the more modern pieces are too predominant. And so I think they need to be subordinate to the more traditional pieces, if you were to continue with that route. The site plan, I think, is nice. I mean, it feels like the roof plan, the roof deck, if you keep it, is in the right location. I'm in favor of kind of burying it in more of a traditional roof, so it's not projecting higher than the existing roof. So, who would like to take a stab at a motion? Make some notes, Howard?
This is, I did. So I could attempt.
Okay, attempt, please.
So we're at the second concept review, and this requires environmental assessment. So I would ask the applicant to return
2-week continuance or?
2-week.
That agenda's full now, so I think we're going to have to do
Indefinite.
indefinite or 4 weeks.
Okay.
You want to do 4 weeks?
It's 4 weeks.
It would
Right around
be,
Thanksgiving?
Late November, yeah.
that would be, yeah, that would be November 21st.
Let's see, we have another project on the 21st.
On the 21st, you do?
Yeah.
Let me see. Sorry, lost my place. I don't have anything on the 21st yet. Full board.
Oh, we do. Oh, well.
Well, you're already here. That's a good time to come.
Okay, all right.
So do you want indefinite or
Well, yeah, the 21st is fine.
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks?
Continuance. So the board is very appreciative of the change in the program from 5 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, and this has helped the project a great deal. I think a board still is concerned about, or is concerned about the difference in style between the building in front and the building in back. And although they are appreciative of a modern approach, they would like to see more of a connection between the two buildings in terms of style, materials. That's pretty much the general gist of what was said. What else?
Is everyone else okay with the massing? I personally think it should still be reduced.
I would add that because I think that's, you have a 10-foot plate here and then an 8-foot plate, and so these elements are compounding the height of that, and then you have the roof deck on top of an 8 and 8 there. It's I think that we would ask that you study the ways of reducing the apparent mass of the building.
Let's have a quick discussion on that. My feeling is the massing isn't too bad, with the exception of maybe the cantilever over the parking stall. And the roof deck, I really think, is upsetting to the overall composition. It feels like a large form kind of superimposed on the composition. I imagine it without the roof deck, and it feels much more down
I
to
think
scale.
my reaction is less on height, more on the site layout. In this elevation, the proximity from the new structure to the existing structure, and that's what I'm struggling with.
That's how I feel too.
How do you
So
feel,
it's
Kevin?
more that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, that's what one of my comments was. It feels tight.
Okay. Well, a majority of the board feels that the existing structure is too tight to the new structure. The applicant should study that.
So his comment, though, was that it was still too massive. So that's two different words.
I think we've refined that to that last comment, so that the majority of the board feels that the new rear structure is too close in proximity to the existing structure.
So the maker of the motion does not want, it's still too massive, study ways of reducing the apparent massing. You want that taken out, Howard?
Well, I'm sorry, sorry to disagree, but I think there are at least two. I'm not sure, Kevin.
Yeah, I think they go
It's
together.
it's the apparent mass of the building.
I think it's the two things for me.
Okay, so I guess we'll keep both those comments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, who will second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Amy. And we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for coming in, guys.
November 21st is forward.
The modern architecture style is nice. It's probably not. It's not. It's kind of squeezed on this site and this project.
So,
It's great in an open field somewhere.
okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda. 1030 Cacique Street. Please come on up. Once you run, we'll catch up.
All right.
and they set up here. All right.
So is Kirk out?
He decided he was going to leave, yeah.
Oh, he needs to announce that.
Okay. Maybe I should have announced it. My fault. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have a couple of people taking a quick break, so we'll give them just a minute here.
It was at the beginning of the last.
Left item.
Hope you noticed.
All the gray. It's sprinkled right?
Right design. Yeah.
I did notice it. I like that. Yeah, I like that stuff a lot. There's a little bit of yellow.
I thought it was inappropriate.
Yeah. Okay, we have a quorum. So next up on the agenda, 1030 Cacique Street. This is a proposal for a 21 square foot addition to an existing 574 square foot single family dwelling, and to convert an existing 697 square foot attached garage to a new one-story dwelling unit, resulting in a duplex. A new 430 square foot two-car garage carport will be constructed, providing 2 covered parking spaces and 2 uncovered parking spaces will also be provided. 1 orange tree is proposed to be removed, and no grading is proposed on this 5,000 square foot parcel. This is a second review. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. So welcome, and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Jose Gutierrez.
Okay. And why don't you go ahead and walk us through your project, and the changes we made. Do we have the changes from last time, or the... Let's see here. Can you grab the previous comments?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes.
Why don't I read out the comments from last time, and then we can walk through them. Thank you. Okay. So at the previous review, we had the following comments. This most recent? 6. Yeah, okay. Item number 1. The project is ready for design approval. 2, the architect is to consult the video recording on September 12th ABR meeting so as to review comments from the board. Item 3, verify the roof plan and crickets are accurately drawn and functional. 4, revise the covered porch to be more like the existing covered porch. 5, replicate or provide a new type of water heater that doesn't encroach into the setback. 6, the elevation should accurately represent where wall changes occur and not show extra lines where they don't occur. 7, the small window below the gable on the north elevation should be centered on the gable end. 8, consider adding a garage door to the carport. Verify with transportation. 9, consider building the carport 3 feet from the property line as opposed to 6 feet. So why don't you walk us through the comments here real quick and how you've addressed them. We'll start with comment number 2. The video, you did look at the video and looked at our comments. Item 3, verify the roof plan crickets are accurately drawn and functional. Let me show us the roof plan here real quick. Okay. So the previous proposal, there were some strange things happening in here. It looks like the water is flowing off to the edge now, as far as I read it. This is all existing here, right?
So this is,
yeah. The ridge shifts like that on the existing project.
The ridges shift, or is this in the same plane?
I think they're two different planes. So there's a change in plane here, and then the ridge shifts and accommodates that change in plane. So I have one plane here. This ridge rises a little higher, but they both land at the same eave. And you can see that.
If they both land, oh, I see, different pitches then.
Yeah. If you look at the existing photos, you can see that.
Okay. They say they're the same pitch.
Okay, it looks like you've resolved those issues. I'll move on to the next comment here. Revise the covered porch to be more like the existing covered porch. See the elevations here, Howard?
Yeah, you recommend to convert to garage.
Have you done that?
Yeah.
So that was the previous design. Let's go back one. So maybe that, oops, other way. All right, we'll go this way. Plans. And put the elevations here. Okay, I don't see a change from last time. This looks like the same design, more or less. Do you have the existing photos?
Yeah, just great.
Yeah. So I think we were expecting something. I mean, it looks like some things have happened. It's similar.
Yeah.
But
the picture, we're going to do the entrance like this.
Okay, but it's not showing up on the drawings yet.
So this,
we were expecting.
This is the back. This entrance here is to this building there, which he's changing from a garage to.
Yeah.
And this entrance here is here, but he's moving it.
Yeah. So I think the comment was that we were expecting or hoping this new gable entry would be more similar to the front porch of the existing house.
It was different before.
It was different before, but
this is wood. This is plaster. This is arch. This is flat. These columns support a beam. I mean, there's a lot of.
It looks like the columns come down to grade, where here they're on higher pedestals. I think you've taken it part way there, but not all the way. But let's move on, and we'll power through these comments. Replicate or provide a new type of water heater that doesn't encroach into the setback. Let's look at that site plan where that was an issue. Okay, I'm trying to remember where this was. I think there was a little notch out. Go ahead and describe that.
We're going to put the ones goes on the wall.
Tankless.
Yeah, instead of
okay
on the same location.
Have that shown out here?
Shown on A5 at least.
Okay, so it's a little wall-mounted tankless water heater. Okay, that seems excellent. The elevation should accurately represent where wall changes occur and not show extra lines. Let's just have a look at those elevations. Looks like they're cleaned up quite a bit. I mean, before, if you remember this, there was some.
And he put some lines in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He removed everything.
It looks cleaned up to my eye. Okay, the small window below the gable on the north elevation should be centered under the gable end. It's right there.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like that's been done. Consider adding a garage door to the carport. So you did decide to do that, okay. And consider building the carport 3 feet from the property line as opposed to 6. If you look at the site plan, what did you decide? 3 feet, okay. That makes sense. That's a good idea. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add to the comments that we've just discussed?
Oh.
Okay. So we'll move on to public comment. Seeing as there's no one here, we'll close public comment and move on to questions from the applicant. We'll start with Howard.
I have no questions.
No questions. Kevin, questions?
No questions.
Amy, any questions?
Questions on the open space plan on A2? What is the difference in material? So the driveway is existing concrete, and then are you just doing that portion in pavers?
Yes, just to mark the
To mark-
parking space. So how we're gonna walk when you get out of the car,
Okay.
as I recommend he did last time.
Okay.
So this is permeable? Permeable.
Yeah,
You're going to cut away the concrete?
and put a
And put the pavers there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, Amy?
No, that was just the main question.
Okay. So I have no questions. Howard, would you like to provide comments?
Well, I think that this is, a modest project, and I think it's realistic. I still think that there's some work to be done on the porched entrance at the back so that it has that same craftsman look and isn't, arched and plastered and so forth. And I think that some kind of a cover over here since it's moved, since this entrance, I guess, from this unit has moved here, and this is another unit, right?
Right.
Might want to put a little eyebrow or some
It's
color.
not on.
Let's look at the elevation.
If you go to the elevation, you can.
I think we did.
Oh,
Something here.
Okay.
I'd recommend that.
Okay.
And I think the other corrections, I think this will work out, and this will all work out fine.
great. Thank you. Kevin, anything?
I don't have any different comments.
Okay. Amy?
Agree with Howard's comments.
I agree with Howard's comments as well.
Wow.
Trifecta. So you understand what we're looking for? I think we're looking for something literally more similar to that.
Because the problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to save that and put it on the.
Absolutely.
That would be, easy. Yeah,
That's what
if
I'm-
possible.
That's what I'm trying.
Also, one suggestion is where you are willing to saw cut the concrete quite a number of lineal feet to create walking surfaces. That area that you are parking cars could also be a very nice little patio area. When you move the cars back, you can use that for a little open space. And I would recommend that you put some kind of paving material over the entire surface so that it designates that area as a car park and also usable patio for enjoyment.
Also, I think that you may have enough steps here that you'll need a little handrail of some sort.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
show that on the next set.
Yeah.
So can we give this design approval today, Susan? Okay.
So we just need the CEQA 15183 exemption.
I'm getting tired of reading that. Would someone else like to make a motion? Yeah, go ahead.
Before we jump into the motion, so we're going to get project design approval based on these changes that we're talking about? So we'd be coming back for final with a lot of changes, potentially.
Potentially, if you don't feel it's ready, then
Personally, would be more comfortable if we would just say to continue to the applicant to return with the changes before giving
okay.
preliminary.
Would you like to make that motion?
Indefinite continuance with the applicant to return to the full board with the requested changes. And other than that, I think it's ready to go, but we'd like
What are
to
the
You've got to
changes?
state those changes.
Yeah, what are the changes?
The changes would be to revise the porch entrance at the back to match the existing entrance at the front, to add an awning or a roof over the entrance
Or a similar feature.
Say again?
A similar feature even.
Similar feature.
You
like
extend
that.
the roof with a few brackets
Yeah.
or something here.
With columns or whatever, and also you'll need a railing there to the side entrance. Suggest that the applicant increase the stone paved area to include the entire uncovered parking to become a sort of outdoor patio. And was there something else?
Howard?
Board Member Witash, I don't know if you can encourage the applicant to use the area for legal parking as recreation area. I think it's meant for parking.
I think you're right. Okay, so that would be your option as to how you want to give the, what material you want to provide there.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Kevin. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you.
Thanks.
So you can take two back. We need to keep this one here. Do you have one copy over? Okay, so both these are yours to take back. So that concludes ABR for October
24th.
Oh, do we need to make a finding for that?
No, because you didn't make a.
Okay. That concludes. Thank you very much. ABR is closed for October 21st, right?
Very good.